happened right down Southwest 77th Avenue here in the parking lot of Pata's apartment building. And tonight, Miami-Dade police are searching for his killer.
Yeah, Brian Pata was a defensive star in the Miami Hurricanes.
He was going to be in the NFL in just a few months.
I said, what do you mean they killed him? Like, why? Why would somebody do this?
Was just coming home. I had just gotten home from work. And as I answered the phone, it was my mom. And my mom shared with me, "You haven't heard? Sydney is dead?" I just paused and started screaming.
When Brian Pata's mother got to the scene and she was told that her son had been killed, I mean, it was devastating. It looked like one of those scenes you'd see in a movie of a mother just wailing, and it was heartbreaking.
Give me my baby! Give me my baby! Give me my baby!
It was a scream of pain that was just coming from her soul, her gut. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. She hugged me, Edric. Sydney is gone. Sydney is gone. I was like, oh my, I started to cry so bad.
My son, very good son, never have a problem with nobody. You know, oh my God, it's gone.
You're watching the rawest of emotions. You're watching someone deal with a tragedy in real time. This is a very private, emotional moment, but it's being broadcast on live TV. And little did we know in that moment how much more devastating it would become.
Life has always been a challenge and obstacles of test of who I am and what I will become. My name is Brian Pata, and this is my story.
We're at the stadium right now. It's game time.
Brian Pata was larger than life.
What's up, y'all?
His aura, it just stuck out. He always gets everybody to kind of gravitate towards him.
Feel me? Check my biceps out.
We got those cameras like the year before.
Come here, dog. See what's up to the camera, dog.
As soon as he got it, you know, everybody was walking around with him. Everybody always taking videos.
It's a true encapsulation of who this person was at that age, living in Miami, being a star football player.
Take off your shirt.
Yeah, Brian, he was always filming. He had to be in front of the cameras. He had to be recording him dancing.
If you look at him, you know, it may be a little intimidating, but he was a great person. He had a great heart, great spirit.
His smile could just light up a room when he came in. He made everybody laugh.
It was just, he had a soft heart and really loved people. You could see this huge guy that looks, you know, this football player, but for me, I looked past that. I knew the soft side of him. That's the brother I remember.
Brian Pata came from a big family. He had an even larger extended family when you consider the football team, the people in his life and community who looked up to him.
My mom, she's from Haiti.
Like most parents, to be successful in this country, you know, you have the dream, the American dream, that come in and work hard.
It was quite a struggle for my mom, you know, single parent, home, you know, then try to make ends meet.
It's a total of 9 children. So there were 6 boys and 3 girls. Brian was the last of the 9.
He was never called Brian at home.
We never called him Brian. Everybody outside knew of him as Brian, but we knew him as Sydney.
Brian Pata, like a lot of people in Miami, didn't have it easy. They moved around a lot, spent a lot of time in Little Haiti and the North Miami.
Brian and his brothers, they were sports crazy. For them, it was a way to get away from some of the troubles in the neighborhoods that they lived in.
Sports was for us pretty much our only way to get to college, to afford college. That's why part of the reason why we worked so hard at it.
When I first met Brian, I was just like, wow, this guy is unbelievable talent.
Brian physically was so gifted in high school. You knew this was somebody who could play at a high level in college.
Brian was heavily recruited out of high school.
But he knew he wanted to stay in this region, and he wanted to stay in this area, but it ultimately came down to being close to his mom.
There was only one school for Brian, and that was the University of Miami.
He swarmed and brought down Brian Patta. He has a motor that will not stop.
Miami Hurricanes in the early 2000s, hands down, is the best team of all time.
Brian Patta was a high-performing player on a team that was highly regarded.
A lot of people think he would have had a long, substantial career in the NFL.
With Brian, his biggest hope was to make it to the NFL, be as successful as he possibly can be, in order for him to take care of his family.
He was a big baby. He'll be sitting in the locker and like he'll just be laughing, like, what are you laughing at? What you laughing at? And he'll be listening to a message his mom just left for him. And she'll be like, Brian, I dream you today. And like, it used to make me laugh too.
She babied him. I mean, she loved him so much, you know what I mean? And we all did.
Brian would be on the phone with his mom. Every single day they talked, he always made sure he checked in with her.
This trajectory that Brian Patta was on was not his alone. His mother, she was on this journey with him.
What are you making?
Oh man, I'm cooking little fish potatoes.
Rice. Fish.
He was going to experience the American dream, which is to have a better life than your parents had, and to share that with them. And that whole trajectory was just derailed.
Navigate police fire with the emergency. Hello? Yeah? Hello? What happened there?
Somebody got shot. The guy's on the ground. I don't know where he's bleeding from, but he's on the ground, man.
When police arrive, they start cordoning off the area. At some point, Miami-Dade police realizes that they need an assistant state's attorney's office representative to be there. They phoned Herbert Walker, who was on call that night.
By the time I got to the scene, you could already see people beginning to gather around it.
The night of the shooting, there was just a lot of police lights, people in the area, everybody wanting to find out what happened. And everybody sort of calling each other, what's going on, what happened.
After the initial incident, I remember meeting with friends and family members just to gather information. My experience as a prosecutor, time is of the essence, and the clock is ticking.
In the hours after Brian's murder, the Miami football team didn't know if this was an attack on Brian or if this was going to be an attack on multiple players.
That summer, another teammate got shot a couple months prior to Brian Patta. Ambush coming out of his house.
I was scared myself, and nobody knows what happened. I thought somebody was trying to kill me too.
This is Murder at the U. I'm Paula Levine.
I got started on this in the spring of 2018. We were just gathering sound. At some point, we realized we had enough sound and enough of a story to make it a true podcast.
The podcast itself didn't really come to fruition until the story seemed a little more complete.
From 30 for 30 Podcasts.
We had a killer amongst us.
Murder at the U.
The podcast is the result of 8 years of investigative reporting by ESPN.
I would say we've interviewed more than 100 people. We've gathered more than 5,000 police documents. Anything we've been able to get our hands on has helped us in our investigation to this point.
A star player on a major college football team, murdered near campus, just a few months shy of the NFL draft.
Brian Patta was an outstanding defensive lineman with UM and was being talked about as an NFL prospect until about 7:30 tonight when he was shot and killed in the parking lot of his apartment building.
Give me my baby! Give me my baby! Give me my baby!
A woman believed to be Patta's mother, wearing a UM jersey with his number on it, collapsed as she rushed to the scene. Other family and friends were overcome by the news.
In the weeks leading up to Brian Patta's death, his family had noticed some things that made them think that Brian thought something bad was going to happen to him.
I last saw Brian that Sunday on the 4th.
Yeah.
I cooked a huge meal for him, my mom and I. He came over and he just seemed kind of just really mellow, quiet.
He just spaced out. And his head was down the whole time, kept rubbing his hair, and his hair was in front of his face, just kept rubbing his head like this.
His spirit was off, but we don't know. He couldn't explain it.
And I remember him leaving, and he said, "Thank you, sis," and gave me a big hug. It seemed like he was so far away from me, but he was literally right there. And I was like, okay, I love you. I'll see you soon. And not knowing that would be my last conversation with him.
November 7th, 2006, pretty average day for Brian. He and his teammate, Eric Moncour, decide that they're going to go register for spring classes.
We went over, we registered for classes, and then we went over and got something to eat. After that, we went back to the Heck athletic facility. We had a great day of practice.
After practice, we were told by one of Brian's teammates, Chris Zellner, that he was in the locker room.
There was a call that Chris Zellner overheard where it seemed like somebody was threatening Brian.
Just happened to be just me and Brian left in the locker room, and then he received a phone call. It started off as a normal call, and then it started getting heated. Brian started to say, like, you, if you want to come see me, you know where the I'm at, you. They hung up. I looked over, I didn't want to be too nosy, and I was just like, hey man, are you good? Like, you straight? So that was the angriest I've ever seen Brian Patta, like, ever.
After practice is done, Brian gets in his car, he's heading home. He sees some of the younger teammates. He offers them a ride home and drops them off.
Brian arrives home around 6:57. He's on the phone with his brother Fednall, and he says to him, "I'm gonna let you go now, I just pulled in."
Brian pulls into the parking lot in front of his apartment complex and exits his car. Within, police estimate, probably 2 minutes of that, he gets shot in the head.
Brian's girlfriend, Jada Brody, says she heard a bang and people arguing. Jada goes outside to investigate. She sees Brian Patta laying face down on a sidewalk, feet from his car. She thinks he's joking because he's a jokester and realizes that there's a pool of blood around his head.
There's police cars, fire rescue everywhere. They basically gave me the quick overview of what had happened and told me that Mr. Patta was found face down on the sidewalk. I saw a large black male just about 20 feet from the entrance to his apartment. There appeared to be an entrance wound to the back of the head, and it was a single shot. Based upon the fact that we didn't find any shell casings, it was suspected that it would have been a smaller caliber revolver-style handgun.
It was clearly not done as a robbery. They found Brian's wallet. There were 9 $100 bills still in it, his cell phone. Like, no one had stolen anything.
To me, this might have been more in the line of a hit, a targeted assassination, if you will.
All through the night, the police canvassed the Colony apartments, knocking on every door, but they turned up no eyewitnesses. There was no security camera footage. There was no obvious trace of the killer other than the bullet that had pierced Brian's skull.
It was the worst feeling I ever had in my whole life. As an older brother, you always want to protect your younger brothers, and I felt like I wasn't there to protect them. It was awful, awful.
Who could have wanted a rising football star with a promising future dead? Detectives began asking questions that night, asking Brian's family and teammates if he had any enemies, if he'd been in any fights, if he was worried for his safety. Turns out, the answer to all of those questions was yes.
The University of Miami.
This is Miami. There is a dangerous, sexy, cool reputation in this town.
Brian Potter. Get at you at the end of the game.
And if you are a college football player at the University of Miami,
It's game time. Time to get serious.
you are going to get caught up in that fast living lifestyle very quickly.
But you know this your boy, entertainer, Big Patter. You know what I'm saying? Just showing y'all my cards or whatnot. The dome, baby.
That was Brian. Yeah, he was that flashy.
Check you out on my inside. You check me out. Ooh, wee.
He was very flashy.
Back in the days, I used to do all the UM players' cars.
K. Brown. This EJ don't.
Brian came to the shop. This is what he wanted right here. This is his favorite color right here. Candy apple gold, the syrup look. He loved that.
Brian's love of cars came during a time when a lot of kids his age were doing a lot of the same thing. He had a great joy of buying old classic cars, fixing them up, and then flipping them on the internet.
Just showing y'all my work, what I could do to my cars. Playing out good.
He enjoyed that aspect of taking something, making it beautiful, and then trying to get a buck off of it.
That was one of the things that Brian wanted to do once he got successful and got paid in the pros, is open up a car shop.
Jamming to that Rick Ross. On our way to my apartment now, US 1 going south.
In 2006, MTV Cribs was a show that was still popular.
On this episode of MTV Cribs, NFL Edition.
Welcome, MTV Cribs. I thought, well, this would be really cool if we could start doing this with local athletes and sort of make it a local story. I was working for the Miami Herald. I was a high school / college football writer. And because of my long relationship with Brian Potter, I just felt like he was the perfect candidate. Because he was one of those top-ranked players who didn't feel like he was too big for you. He wanted to help tell his story. I attached a microphone with a tape recorder to Brian's shirt, and we recorded it.
What up, y'all? It's my crib. I'm Brian Potter, University of Miami, defensive tackle.
What's up?
If you walk in, this is it's a townhouse, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom. It's a living room. We got not that much stuff, but it's decent for athletes. I broke the TV. I kind of spilled juice on it. So no TV there, but a cable box. Check out the kitchen. We keep it clean. Probably got one dish in here, one cup. Going upstairs to the room. This is my room. It's all right. It's not, spectacular or nothing like that, but this is a little collage of me and my girl.
Jada Brody was, at the time of Brian's death, his girlfriend. They had been together for exactly a year. She had moved into his apartment earlier that summer.
I introduced Brian to his girlfriend, Jada. My name is Dave Howell, and I was friends and teammates with Brian Patta. We were at a on-campus party, and he ended up noticing her from like afar. And he was just like, you know, who's that? I was like, oh, I know her. I went to high school with her. Her name is Jada. He was just like, you know, can you hook us up? And I introduced them.
That's Jada?
Yeah.
Brian was not, you know, some serial dater and all that. He was just a typical college student. And I think at that point, he just kind of settled down a little bit, wanted to, you know, to take this relationship a little more serious with Jada.
They had their fights, they had their love. They were just a typical college couple.
The day that he was killed, the night before, they were celebrating their 1-year anniversary. So it seemed like they were, you know, they were on cloud nine to me.
According to what she told detectives, Jada was in the apartment cleaning out her dog's kennel. She told police that she heard an argument outside, possibly Brian's voice, and went to see what was going on. She saw Brian lying on the ground. At first, she thought he was playing a prank. Then she saw blood around his head. Jada said she ran back upstairs to call 911.
You never know who might be a possible suspect, and at that point, everybody's a suspect.
One of the things that police looked into and that we looked into as well were some conflicts that Brian apparently had with Jada's family.
The police found that in the spring of 2006, Jada told her father, Jerry, that Brian had broken up with her because he suspected her of cheating on him. Jerry told police that he then called Brian to warn him not to speak disrespectfully about his daughter. The conversation with Jerry led detectives to Jada's twin brother, Jerome. Jerome Brody had been in and out of jail for various offenses, and his father said that Jerome would have killed anyone who messed with the family.
You might have a situation where a brother, a sibling, might feel strongly enough that he might take matters into his own hands.
About a month after Brian's murder, Jada Brody's brother, Jerome Brody, ends up getting arrested in Boston, and as part of the arrest, police find some guns in a vehicle. Miami-Dade gets this information that they have those guns tested to see if they're a match to the bullet found in Brian's skull.
Miami-Dade police flew up to Boston, tried to speak with Jerome. He was unwilling to speak, but those guns that Jerome had didn't match any possibility to Brian.
We did our due diligence, and we couldn't place him in the area.
Jada's twin brother and other members of her family were deemed not to be involved.
The police started going down all of these different rabbit holes, but they actually were starting to look at someone much closer to Brian.
Hello?
Whether Brian got mixed up with the wrong girl is one of the questions that certainly the investigative team looked into. Is there an ex-boyfriend that is upset that she left him? Crimes of passion cause passionate action.
Brian Patta, a defensive lineman for the Miami Hurricanes.
Brian Patta was shot and killed. Brian Patta was a great leader.
A team leader.
A selfless, fun-loving kid. Teachers loved him.
A tragedy. We miss Brian Patta.
Brian was laid to rest at the New Birth Baptist Church in Miami.
The amount of people that was coming in, I think it was like over 2,000 people.
I remember my mom passing out, crying.
Passed out completely.
Yeah, completely passed out.
A lot of our teammates was there. You know, it was a sad day, man.
It was a hard day. Seeing a lot of teammates break down and start crying. It was a really tough day for the University of Miami.
Look at this moment here.
At the first game after Brian's murder, the team kneeled for a moment of prayer and silent reflection midfield with this big banner
Brian Pada's image, the slain Hurricane teammate, a banner that fans made, and the team gathering around it at midfield.
That was rough. We were just like numb, you know, like you didn't feel like playing no football, you know what I mean? Like the teammate just got killed.
Months before Brian was murdered, one of his friends had purchased for him a suit to wear to draft day.
Brian had picked us out to wear this draft, and they had it all out. And that's when it hit me then, just looking at that. It's supposed to be the best night of his life. And this is the worst. You got to bury him in it.
There's an alternate universe in which this tragedy doesn't occur, where Brian Pata goes on to the NFL, and he would have been a multimillionaire. It would have been another Miami Hurricanes American dream story.
Everybody wanted to find out what happened. Just a lot of questions. Who did this? Who would have wanted to kill Brian Pata?
In the hours after Brian's murder, the Miami football team decided to bring all of the players back to the athletic center, the Heck Center, to brief them all on what had happened. The one glaring thing that people noticed was that there was one player not there.
Brian had an issue with one player on the team, and that was Rashawn Jones. He didn't like him, they didn't get along. He's not a good person.
Brian Pata's name was buzzing at that time. There was a lot of talk about his future, a lot of hype about him going into the NFL draft. Rashawn Jones was more of a background player. You didn't hear his name a whole lot.
Rashawn Jones was a safety on the football team, a defensive back, really didn't play very much.
I looked at him as like a cool young guy, jokester. You could tell by the way he worked on the field. He was somebody who was passionate about the game.
He was a ladies' man. I mean, I knew every time I seen him, he was trying to, get at the girls.
In the early days of the investigation, police came across a specific beef that Brian had with Rashawn, and it was largely over Jada Brody, Brian's girlfriend.
Prior to Brian and Jada being in a relationship, it was rumored that Rashawn and Jada had some form of relationship. That is what the friction that was there between Brian and Rashawn.
According to some of Brian's teammates, there would be taunting about, she's my girl. There was definite jealousy and factors there that put those two at odds over who she liked, who she was dating, and what her history was with both guys.
He just said that the guy kept trying to fight him, and so they kept getting to these little fights.
In 2004, there was an incident between Rashawn and Brian that had happened on campus in one of their dorm rooms.
The dorm fight, me, Brian, and Eric were walking up to Eric's room, and at that time we saw Rashawn leaving out of the room. We were just kind of like confused, like, why is he in there?
I don't know. He said he was looking for DVDs. He was trying to apologize to me, but I really didn't want to hear it. I was just tired. I was ready to go to sleep because I had to be up in a few hours.
Rashawn ended up trying to, leave out of the room, and then Brian ended up punching Rashawn. And me and Eric kind of looked at each other like, did this really just escalate like that fast?
I broke it up. When Rashawn was walking out, he told Brian he might as well go ahead and clip up.
They heard Rashawn say to Brian, "You better clip up," meaning that he better get a gun.
I was like, y'all about to shoot each other right now? Get out of my room. Like, you know what I mean? I'm about to go to sleep. Like, I'll holler at you.
Rashawn Jones threatened Brian, so you never take anybody who threatened your life lightly like that.
I don't think that he looked at that as like a threat. I mean, he never really mentioned it after. You know what I mean?
Here's what we had learned about Rashawn. Rashawn had conflicts with Brian. He would have known the Hurricanes' practice schedule and what time Brian would arrive home. According to the police report, there were no eyewitnesses to the shooting. No murder weapon was ever found. and there was no record of any physical evidence linking Rashawn to the crime.
Clearly the name Rashawn Jones came up, but it was on a list of many names that we were looking at.
Initially, police looked into a broad string of incidents involving the Miami football team, but they weren't able to make any connection to Brian's shooting. As the investigation continued and police widened their search, they realized there was a long list of people who may have wanted to harm Brian.
At one point, the police had been alerted by a jailhouse snitch that his cellmate had allegedly confessed to him one night.
As part of vetting, the police had the informant take a polygraph.
No arrests as of yet as police in Miami continue their investigation. Brian Pata, senior defensive lineman for Miami, gunned down at the age of 22.
The murder of Brian Pata took on mythological proportions in this town. It was like everybody had a different theory.
We learned that Brian had a busy life. It wasn't just football and his girlfriend. He was involved in a lot of things.
The investigation at the start went in so many different directions.
There were so many different angles they were trying to go with. I felt like the police just didn't know which leads to really truly go for.
It wasn't a limited field of suspects. You need to follow the evidence.
One of the tips that came into the Miami-Dade police was that if they wanted to find Brian Pata's killer, they needed to look for ties with the Zopound gang.
Zopound's a well-known gang in the Miami area. They were notorious for doing crimes of great violence. Zopound was featured as one of the bad guys in one of the Will Smith, Martin Lawrence Bad Boys movies.
Yo, dry off, sweetheart. That's Ice Pick. He said the Haitian Zopound's about to do a rep. Let's move.
There is no indication that Brian was a member of this gang, but there were members of the Zopound gang who told us that they were aware of Brian, that they knew him.
The homicide detectives weren't able to bring back anything that would tie a specific action of the Zopound to this incident.
There was a lot of talk about Brian getting into fights with some pretty potentially dangerous characters.
Oh boy.
It is not uncommon at all to see bad blood lead to fists being thrown in a nightclub in Miami.
A few months before Brian is killed, Brian and some of his teammates are at a club called Club Life. And they get into an altercation with some guys there who belong to a gang.
There was definitely a physical confrontation.
Brian's throwing punches and he's clearly involved in the fight. And as they are leaving, members of this gang are telling them, we're gonna come after you for this. And one of the teammates with Brian at the time is calling Brian and telling him that, someone's got a hit out on us.
At first, Brian was definitely worried about these guys. His girlfriend found him sleeping in the closet where he kept his shotgun. And I think that that was certainly a reasonable indication of concern or fear or paranoia on Brian's part.
The Club Life investigation didn't seem to go anywhere, but then a few months later, the police got another promising lead, an alleged jailhouse confession. There was a jailhouse informant. His name was Bernard Brinson, and he claimed that he was having a conversation with another inmate by the name of Emmanuel Jones. And Emmanuel Jones would end up telling him that he got paid to do a hit and that he believed that the person he got paid to do the hit on was Brian Pata.
They went and actually administered a lie detector test, and the jailhouse snitch passed the lie detector test.
Back in 2007, police had quickly ruled Emmanuel Jones out as a suspect.
There's evidence in the police records that that man had an alibi because he was in jail on November 7th, 2006.
But we discovered the police had the timeline of his arrest all wrong. That robbery took place in August 2006. But Jones wasn't actually arrested until December, a month after Brian's murder.
Miami police did not respond to our requests for comment.
Years later, I was able to actually track down the alleged confessor, Emmanuel Jones. And I got him on the phone, and I was trying to bring him back to that time period in 2006.
If someone were to say, hey, you confessed to this murder, do you remember where you were in November?
I was nowhere around no murder. I don't know anything about no murder.
They wrote he had an alibi. He was in jail for stealing a dirt bike in an armed robbery.
There was all this talk of jailhouse confessions and tales of professional hits. All of this just swirled because there was just this emptiness that the police couldn't fill.
You hear this person's the lead person, and next week someone else is the lead person.
When it took longer than 6 months, all of a sudden you're like, okay, like what's going on?
Now a tragedy that has no closure, no conclusion, and no answers. The murder of Brian Pata.
It takes too long to know who killed him. I don't know what to say anymore. Every day I'm talking, we try to call the detective to ask them questions. They don't want to pick up the phone, we leave them message, they don't call back.
It feels like Miami-Dade needed to do something new. Their hand was almost forced into doing something creative.
As a reporter, I try to stay out of the story. But sometimes the work you do to get the story and what you uncover changes it. That's exactly what happened here.
To my knowledge, this is the first time a police entity has ever reached out to ESPN for help with a case like this.
Welcome inside Radio City Music Hall.
The 2007 NFL Draft is now open.
In April of 2007, the NFL Draft was held at Radio City Music Hall.
The Chicago Bears take Greg Olsen, tight end, Miami.
Seeing those guys that he knew and get picked, it was real sad to watch.
Introduce yourself, man.
I am Greg Olsen. How you doing, Pat?
Greg Olsen and Brian were good friends on the team. After Brian's death, Greg Olsen went on to have an incredible NFL career and a long broadcast career after.
It reminds you of what could have been for Brian, the life that he could have lived.
It isn't entirely clear to us how this case ended up becoming a cold case. There was a ton of media attention at the time, but fell off.
The family reached a point that they were very frustrated with the police efforts to finding answers.
When you look at the police file, you see very, very little new inserts from 2010 to 2016. It was almost like nothing had been done. It's March of 2017, and the family is holding a joint press conference with Miami-Dade PD.
It's hurt. It's hurt. 10 years now. We don't hear nothing from my son.
Brian's mother turns very accusatory towards Miami-Dade police.
They don't work in the case so well. The system don't work. I have to say something. It's hurt me.
I think it was the pressure from the family that finally prompted the Miami-Dade Police Department to reach out to the media to see, okay, look, the family wants us to do something. Let's at least make the effort to put the word out there again and see if we can generate some leads.
Maybe now, 10 years later, somebody who might have information might be an adult now. Maybe they'll do the right thing and make that one phone call that we need.
So in the summer of 2017, Miami-Dade police reached out to ESPN in the hopes that we would produce a feature,
wait for this matchup tonight.
hoping that it might trigger something in somebody watching it. We discussed it internally and thought, let's see if there's something more to this story than just a college game day piece.
You know, we're ready to kind of jump in with both feet and then see what we can do to move the case forward, if you will.
That sounds great to me. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
We would ask lots of questions. A lot of them they couldn't answer, but a lot of them they did.
What do you know, if anything, about maybe what led up to it, or if there was an argument or anything?
We don't know if he had bad blood with anybody. As of right now, we really don't have a motive.
One of the things that really drives me in an investigation is looking at, okay, the people who were supposed to be doing a good job at this, what did they do? I wanted to dig further into this.
Once we started putting in requests for actual police evidence and police files, it quickly became a little bit adversarial.
There are a lot of questions we have about witness interviews, phone records, and any other possible leads that you guys have gone down that we would love for you to share with us.
That's stuff that is, since it's still active, we can't disclose.
They did start to provide some documents, but the problem was giant sections of them were blacked out. If we didn't get the information, we couldn't tell a complete story.
Greg Cooper and Dean Jackson are members of a cold case unit in Utah. We realized we needed some out-of-house guidance on how we had perceived Miami-Dade's police work.
They're former investigators, law enforcement, and when they looked at this, they agreed. There were some of these angles that the police hadn't ruled out.
There was some redaction to those reports, so without having that information, it created questions about the investigation and how far it went, how thorough it was.
One of the things that I just can't get over with this is that there were some just basic omissions and errors in this that you would not think that a police department of that size would be making. It's like, you know, in 2006, there weren't text messages.
Did you guys look through Brian's texts from what was available on the physical phone?
I don't believe there was text messaging back then. That was the old style flip phones, you know, those push-to-talk phones were the old things that I don't believe there was texting.
By the time we went back to them a year later, we had learned a lot about Brian's life. And at that point, we were asking them questions which they didn't even have answers to.
We were told by Chris Zellner, Brian's teammate, that in the locker room after practice, the day of the shooting, Brian was engaged in a very heated phone call. Was that call investigated?
I don't remember that individual's name. I don't think I personally interviewed him. Obviously, that's somebody that I would like to speak to also.
After we all got the news that Brian passed away, I immediately told the police officers, and they just kind of like, okay, thank you, we'll take that into consideration. And that was it. No follow-up questions, no like, do you think you heard anything? Do you think you heard a name? Nothing like that. I never heard from them ever again.
The caller that Chris Zellner had overheard is a cause for concern in that it was never identified who the caller was or what the nature of the conversation was. That should have been tracked down, identified, and interviewed.
When the police department was being reticent with us about information, that really made me curious because you wanted us to do this, like you wanted this exposure. And what is it that you don't want to tell us?
It appeared as though the Miami-Dade police turned on the very people that they had recruited into this effort to help solve this cold case.
ESPN decided that the only way to try to get an unredacted copy of the files was to sue Miami-Dade police.
So we're here on the case of ESPN Inc. versus Miami-Dade County et al., case number 2020-5029-C01.
Eventually, we were ruled against, but while on the stands, we were able to get several officers of Miami-Dade to admit.
Does MDPD know who killed Brian Pata?
Yeah, we have a strong belief as to who's responsible for his death.
And that revelation confirmed what was previously released to us by accident in the heavily redacted police reports. In some of the initial batches of records that they gave us, they included dossiers on a lot of the people they looked into. The only cover page that had the word suspect on it was the cover page for Rashawn Jones.
We knew that was important. They forgot to redact it.
That was the first indication that they were not being truthful with us.
Do you have a specific suspect in mind?
No. I mean, anybody, we didn't have a specific suspect.
The police are not required to be truthful to reporters. However, in denying they ever had a main suspect, they made us even more skeptical of their information.
They had considered Rashawn Jones a suspect from the beginning.
In November of 2020, our investigative team decided that it was ready to publish something with everything that we had learned.
That photo that was featured so prominently of all the players on the field kneeling by that banner of Brian's face will look very different based on the players who are pictured in it.
Place your hands behind your back for me. You've been placed under arrest.
My mom, she still talks to him, and we help her clean the gravesite. The heartbreak of not knowing. There's not a day that my mom did not wake up. She's in tears. She'll never be the same.
I remember my son every day. It's sad.
While interviewing the family, we learned that every year they held a vigil on the anniversary of Brian's murder at his gravestone.
I try to keep this case active as much as we can. 13 years later, you realize nothing's been really done.
Somebody just kill him like this, it's not right. One day, truth gonna come out.
From the outside looking in, it was the kind of case that police should have been motivated to solve quickly. But that is not what happened. Instead, weeks turned into months, which eventually turned into years, and Brian's murder remained unsolved.
In November of 2020, our investigative team decided that we'd probably taken the case as far as we could to that point. That's when the digital story came out. The family was so appreciative that Brian's name was finally being talked about again, and some pressure, it seemed, would be put back on Miami-Dade police.
You may remember this case because Pata was a star football player for the University of Miami.
It's been over a decade, and the murder of Brian Pata is still unsolved.
In one of South Florida's most infamous unsolved murders, the shooting of a University of Miami lineman, and it remains unsolved to this day.
We felt like that got the ball rolling again.
It opened it up big time.
Our story was the very first time that the public had been told that Rashawn Jones, a former teammate of Brian Pata's, was the person that police were considering most likely to have killed him.
One of the theories of Brian's murder definitely revolved around his teammate, Rashawn Jones. There was pretty open conflict between the two of them.
After reading the ESPN article and then just kind of putting this piece and this piece together to kind of make it make sense, I started to believe that there was definitely a capability of this being Rashawn.
I received a voicemail from Edric, Brian's older brother.
Hey Dan, good morning. It's heating up really good. I think they're about to make an arrest soon.
9 months after our story comes out, we get word that the Miami-Dade Police Department is moving to arrest Rashawn Jones.
I believe one of the catalysts was the ESPN article that came out. I think also the state prosecutor also getting a little more aggressive in his approach towards arresting someone.
They show up at a Dollar Tree warehouse in Ocala, Florida, where he's working, and they're waiting for him when he leaves work. And he's arrested.
Being placed under arrest.
Another exclusive tonight, the wife of a former UM football player coming to his defense after he was arrested for murder.
I heard them say, Rashawn Jones, put your phone down, you're under arrest.
Rashawn Jones' wife says he knows nothing about that night and doesn't know who killed Brian Pata.
He's not this person that they're trying to portray.
She says even though Jones and Pata had a history, it was resolved before his death.
He said it wasn't even at odds when Brian got killed. He's not a murderer. He's not.
An arrest in the 15-year-old cold case, the murder of a University of Miami football player. Brian Pata was fatally shot outside his apartment back in November of 2006, and now police have arrested his former teammate, 35-year-old Rashawn Jones, and charged him with Pata's death.
I said to myself, it's about time. It's about time. My mom she got up and she started to dance and she started to praise God and say thank you.
I kept trying to say it can't be true, wait till it's all proven, but like at that moment, I'm not gonna lie, I was really upset.
Look at this moment here, Brian Pada's image, the slain Hurricane teammate, a banner that fans made, and the team gathering around it at midfield.
Initially, the photo of this moment looked to us like a team united, grieving one of their own. But now, one player sticks out, Rashawn Jones. Somehow, he's made it to the front row. He's on one knee, looking down at Brian's face on the banner. Knowing the rumors that were swirling around the team at that time, that photo started to look very different to us.
When I see that photo, I just be like, wow, you know what I'm saying? It just give you chills, man. You know what I mean? It's a little scary.
So the question now is, looking at that image, are we seeing a man who is praying for his teammate or who is praying for forgiveness?
After Rashawn Jones was arrested, we were really waiting around to see what was the tipping point. What was that missing piece of the puzzle that you said you needed to make an arrest?
Were you anywhere near the scene where Brian was killed that night?
I wasn't in the area.
What if I told you there was an eyewitness that saw you leaving the scene right after?
"35-year-old Rashawn Jones, a former defensive back for the Canes, was arrested in Lake City in Marion County earlier today with the help of U.S. Marshals.
After Brian is killed, Rashawn had gone on to marry his high school sweetheart, Ashenda. He has 5 children, and he's doing some coaching stuff. He's somewhat still involved in football, but seems to be living a pretty average life.
In August of 2021, Rashawn Jones was arrested and was subsequently interviewed and interrogated for this crime.
Have you already patted him down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've gone through everything, pockets and stuff.
And in walks Miami-Dade Police Detective Juan Segovia, who took over this investigation from Miguel Dominguez, who retired right after our lawsuit.
How many hours did you sleep last night?
The approach that the detective is using at this point really is non-accusatory. It's just an interview approach to begin with.
What can you tell me about your relationship with Brian?
I mean, we had an up and down relationship.
Okay. What happened? What does that mean, up and down?
We was teammates. I guess females got involved. So it was, I don't know, I guess jealousy over females.
I think Rashawn wants to find out how much information, what the detail is, what it is eventually that the detective has to share with him.
He doesn't seem to be concerned about admitting that, they've had some ups and downs.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, because they haven't put it into a context for him to have concerns about that.
Rashawn had somewhat of a history of getting into altercations, and there was another player that would tell police that Rashawn actually pulled a gun on him.
Did you own a firearm back when you were at University of Miami?
No.
You never had carried? Never.
No.
Did you ever make it sound like you carried a firearm?
I don't know. That was a lot going on back then. I don't remember if I said no. I didn't know to say I carried a firearm.
Most likely the realization is they're trying to connect me to a weapon that's connected to the homicide.
And all of a sudden, he starts stammering.
And you can see that he's thinking about that. He's trying to go back through the files in his memory.
On the morning of Brian's murder, Rashawn is called into the coach's office, and he's told that he's failed his drug tests, which is going to lead to a suspension.
It was for marijuana?
It was for marijuana, so I don't go to practice that day.
Okay.
When I leave out his office, I go home.
Miami-Dade pulled phone records for Rashawn Jones, which show that at 3 p.m. on the day of the murder, Rashawn activated a new phone number.
What was the reason for changing your number? Explain to me.
I don't know. At the time, I felt like I was gonna get a lot of backlash for my second marijuana. I mean, for my drug test.
From who?
From friends, family. I know I let my family down, mother them, grandmother them.
One thing that stood out when we finally got to look at his phone records was that there were 56 calls, but there was a gap between about 6:40 and 7:40. And police believe Brian was shot around 7 o'clock.
So when you got home, you turned off your phone?
Yeah.
What'd you do that?
I just didn't want to be from the outside world.
Okay.
I was frustrated with myself.
At the time of the shooting, police are contacted by someone who lives at the Colony apartment complex by the name of Paul Connor.
Paul Connor was a writing instructor at the University of Miami. On the night of the murder, Paul Connor was about to make a turn into the parking lot. He hears a pop. And seconds later, he walks by a young African-American male going in the opposite direction.
Police later showed Connor a photo lineup, and Connor identified Rashawn Jones as the man he saw that night.
What if I told you there was an eyewitness that saw you leaving the scene right after? You remember that old man that you crossed with in the sidewalk there?
I wasn't there. He can't eyewitness me.
You were identified as leaving the scene.
How? And I wasn't there.
He was shown 6 photographs. He was shown 6 photographs, and you were one of them, and he immediately identified you.
I can't explain it to you. I don't know.
Just really bad luck?
Really bad luck. I'm telling you, I have nothing to do with this guy murder. Nothing. Ain't no 15 years of telling myself I didn't do it, or ain't no trying to convince myself I didn't. Nothing.
His concurrence that, yeah, it's just bad luck. This is just bad luck, really bad luck for me. No, it's a lot more than bad luck. It's either fact or it's being trumped up against him.
Why would all these people lie about your
I just said I used to live, I used to be young and wild. So I guess that's just the perspective they got on me of how I was. But that ain't got nothing to do with picking up no gun, trying to kill nobody, harm nobody with. That's not in me.
Ashenda is brought into the interrogation area as well, and she comes to talk to Rashawn after they've interviewed him.
They said they got the eyewitness and people saying that they seen me with a gun when I was in Miami. Oh, I threatened Brian when I was in Miami. People heard me threaten him.
That's all they got?
People heard me.
They ain't got no DNA. You can't maybe think my husband is a killer. I said, listen, you have to literally show me him standing over the body for me to believe that he killed this man. I love you.
You've got a star witness involved here, identifying Rashawn as the individual responsible, and it behooves the prosecution to ensure that that individual is safe and willing to participate and capable of it.
In the lead up to the trial, the prosecution had been telling the court that there had been issues with tracking down Mr. Connor. They tried his phone number, they tried his address. He was nowhere to be found. They just presumed that he was dead.
But something here just didn't seem right. I find people for a living. I just didn't believe he was dead.
Mr. Connor?
Mommy kept all of these. Mommy was so happy when she got this jersey.
Oh, yeah. My son.
She said, my son. That's him holding it. That was the first jersey. This tells you right here how much of a jokester he was. You see?
Oh my God. I missed his boy.
Yeah. You hear stories or you watch a documentary, you see something like this, to think that one day that you'll be that same family wanting justice, wanting closure, and you're sitting there just waiting. This is him as a baby.
It's been a roller coaster ride for all of us. We prepare and we talk about it. Then all of a sudden they get pushed, you know, and then it gets pushed and it's pushed. It's been a roller coaster ride.
If the family hadn't pushed, if there was no 2017 press conference with Jeanette Pata, if there was no involvement of ESPN, would we even be at this point?
The former UM football player accused of killing a teammate charged with second-degree murder at his arraignment today. Jones has pleaded not guilty.
The first substantive thing that happens in his case is a bond hearing, which is in 2022.
Please come forward to the witness stand right up here.
One of the most interesting things about the bond hearing was that we finally got to see, for the first time, Paul Connor, the writing instructor from Miami who claimed that he saw someone matching the description of Rashawn Jones leaving the apartment complex after the shooting.
How would you describe the person that you saw, Mr. Connor?
A young African-American, 6 feet to 6'1", tall, approaching the gate.
What did you notice about the man and his facial features?
Well, he smiled at me. He had a clean set of white teeth, no gold teeth.
The bond hearing lasted a few days, and at the end of it, the judge set Rashawn's bail at $850,000. But his family couldn't come up with the portion needed for bail, so he remained in the Metro West Detention Center in Miami. Time passed, and 4 years after his arrest, Rashawn was still in jail, waiting for a trial.
I got contacted by Rashawn because another client referred him. I went to see him at the jail, and he told me a little bit about his case, about the fact that it had taken 15 years. The case did not sit right with me, and I decided that I was going to represent him.
Rashawn Jones has a fiercely passionate and dedicated defense team in his corner. Sarah Alvarez is 30 years old. This is her first murder case ever.
So when I came onto the case, the witness list that the state had filed was very incomplete. I realized that there was a lot left to do in terms of deposing these witnesses and also tracking down other witnesses who the state was saying they had never had contact with.
As it turned out, one witness was extremely difficult to track down.
In the summer of 2025, the state attorney's office comes to a hearing and says something that is pretty shocking, which is they can't locate their main eyewitness, which is Paul Connor.
They couldn't find him. They said they had run him in all the records databases, and we kept pushing and asking for evidence of this.
The prosecution had been telling the court that there had been issues with tracking down Mr. Connor. They tried his phone number, they tried his address. He was nowhere to be found. They just presumed that he was dead.
As someone who does this for a living and tracks people down, I did not believe that Paul Connor was dead, because when you die, you create a paper trail.
Paula Levine phoned one of Mr. Connor's previous co-workers. She was so concerned that she called a welfare check to be done on him.
Remember, this is a private individual just calling up the Louisville Police Department to do this.
Hey, are you Paul?
Yeah.
Paul, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one.
A few weeks later, producer Dan Aruda and I made a trip to Louisville to see for ourselves. We arrived at the address that both we and Miami-Dade had for Connor.
Hi, are you Paul Connor?
Yeah.
Have you been contacted by anyone recently from like Miami State Attorney's Office at all?
No.
Just before the murder trial for Brian Pata is about to start, a key witness is found who police thought was dead.
It wasn't the police that discovered this key witness wasn't dead. It was ESPN. I mean, that's just wild.
2020 reached out to the Miami police with specific questions about their investigation. They did not respond to our requests for comment.
All right.
So as the case finally heads to trial after all these years, all eyes are on that courtroom in Miami.
Nearly 20 years after the deadly shooting of a UM football player, it's time for trial for a teammate accused of the crime.
This case got really personal for all of us. We were ready to take the gloves off and throw down.
Everyone out. Everyone out. Yes, everyone out, including out.
So this is courtroom 4-1. It's really only used for the big trials. It's the same courtroom where Ted Bundy was tried. And they knew that the media would be interested in this case.
The first day where testimony is scheduled to begin, here comes the Pata family in force into the courtroom. His brothers and sisters and his mom, Jeanette, who is in a wheelchair.
We've been preparing for the unknown because this is the hardest thing. We've never gone through this before.
And to see them all come in and fill up, 2 full rows in the gallery, it was powerful. They sat down and I think they bore witness. I mean, that's the best way to put this, to what they hope is justice.
The inescapable feeling here is justice delayed is justice denied.
State of Florida versus Rashawn Jones.
State prosecutors say over the 15 or so years of this case, all evidence really pointed to the defendant.
We are asking that you just pay close attention to each and every witness who testifies, because each person will provide a piece of evidence that in the end points only to one person. The man sitting at that table over there, Rashawn Jones.
So for the prosecution, this case basically comes down to the relationship between Brian, Jada, and Rashawn.
All roads did not lead to Rashawn Jones. Just because the government tells you that something is true does not make it so.
Rashawn looked, as he's sitting at the table, very professional. He didn't really glance over at the family. He really kept his focus on his counsel.
For 15 years, the police interview Rashawn along with other teammates and other students, but they never really treat him like a suspect. They don't bring him in for a sworn statement for 15 years after he's already been arrested for this horrible crime.
Would you like to call your first witness?
In an extremely emotional moment in the courtroom, you have Dwayne Hendricks, Brian's teammate, former roommate, testifying about the moment when he saw his friend lying motionless in front of their apartment.
I noticed Brian on the ground, so I hopped out of the car and I was like, yo, stop playing. He had a puddle of blood behind his head. That's when it hit me. He wasn't playing and it wasn't a game anymore.
Did you call anyone from his family?
I tell people to this day, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It was to call that. To call his mom and say that her youngest is dead.
When the prosecutor first started showing some of the photos from the crime scene and some of the photos of Brian's body, it was a really emotional moment for the family. I mean, they were leaning forward, they were grabbing tissues, some of them turned their heads away. It clearly had an effect on them.
Good afternoon, Mr. Howell.
Dave Howell, Brian's teammate, testified about the hostility that he saw between Brian and Rashawn over Jada.
Did Brian and Rashawn get in any other disputes?
Yes.
Were they over Jada?
Yes.
Did you see any of those disputes?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what you saw?
It was in front of the cafeteria. It was just words between the two of them and they moved on. It was nothing physical.
And former teammate Eric Moncourt testified about the day that they came up to his dorm room.
Brian ended up pushing him, and he pushed him, and I think he punched him, and punched him, and then he got on top of him and started headbutting him. And then I ended up grabbing Brian and pulling him off, and Rashawn got up and he walked out the room. He was like, boy, you might as well go ahead and clip up.
During cross-examination, the defense attempted to downplay the statement "clip up."
You didn't actually believe that Mr. Jones was going to shoot anybody, correct?
No.
You didn't take this as a serious threat?
No.
After this fight had happened in your dorm room in the summer of 2004, you thought that it was over at that point, correct? There was no further beef?
Yes.
And you never heard anybody bring this fight up again, right?
Not to my knowledge.
But the key testimony came from that alleged eyewitness, Paul Connor.
I'll keep this very brief. I really just have one question for you. What did Rashawn's teeth look like in November of 2006?
So if you think about it, this entire case could possibly come down to the description of someone's smile.
Key witness taking the stand today in the murder trial of Rashawn Jones, a former UM professor, detailing what he heard and saw the night Brian Patta was shot and killed.
The state plays for the jury a recorded testimony of Paul Connor from a hearing in 2022.
Do you swear or affirm that testimony?
It was treated as regular testimony.
He smiled at me. He had a clean set of white teeth, no gold teeth. And that's about it. I described him to the forensic artist.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the sketch that was created based upon your representation?
Yes.
The million-dollar question in this is, did the jury believe Paul Connor?
But another witness, Bruce Johnson, who was a teammate of both Rashawn and Brian, is called to testify. The defense takes this as an opportunity to question him about Rashawn's teeth.
I really just have one question for you. What did Rashawn's teeth look like in November of 2006?
They just wasn't, everything wasn't straight. It was jagged, kind of messed up.
Would you describe them as a clean set of white teeth?
No.
Now, these two statements are completely at odds with each other.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury and tell them where you're employed?
Yes, my name is Juan Segovia. I'm a homicide investigator with the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office.
One of the final witnesses that the state called was Detective Juan Segovia, and he had been assigned in 2020 to take over the case, and his testimony was incredibly useful for the prosecution because it took all these little pieces of testimony from all these other people and essentially tied it together in a very effective narrative as to the motive, the means, the opportunity for Rashawn Jones to kill Brian Patta.
What information did you gather that led to you getting an arrest warrant?
It was the threats accompanied with the display or talk of the same type of firearm that killed the victim. It was the phone records. It was the identification of Mr. Connor and all the circumstantial stuff that happened the night of.
The jury also got to hear the post-arrest interrogation interview of Rashawn Jones.
Let's talk about Jada a little bit, because Jada's name comes up a lot during the investigation. Is that the first time that you have any beef with Brian whatsoever? Yeah. That you remember, that was over Jada? Yeah. Okay. You dated Jada? Never dated Jada. Did you guys have any relations? We had a relation once.
On cross-examination, the defense pressed Segovia on whether or not Rashawn ever owned a gun.
You have no personal knowledge whatsoever that Mr. Jones actually owned a firearm at any point, do you?
Not legally.
Not legally?
Right.
You have never seen Mr. Jones with a firearm?
I've never seen him.
The prosecution ends its case on the very graphic testimony of the medical examiner.
I do.
Who uses a model to describe the fatal injury that takes Brian's life.
The pathway of the bullet through Mr. Patta's body was from his left side, several inches above his left ear.
That was hard for the family. It was an incredibly emotional way to end those 5 days of testimony.
At this time, the state rests.
We had so many other leads, all of which were more viable than Rashawn. Ultimately, the court ruled that these different viable theories be excluded.
At this time, the defense rests.
Even without that, we felt so good about the case because they still didn't have anything, and we trusted that a jury would feel similarly.
I had to ask somebody next to me, did I hear what I thought I heard?
Mr. Jones, your attorneys have indicated after speaking to you that you do not wish to testify. They're not going to call any witnesses on your behalf. Have you had an opportunity to discuss that with them?
Yes.
Are you deciding not to testify in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
We were stunned. I think anybody there who was witnessing this was wondering what had happened.
Both the state and the defendant have now rested their case. The attorneys will now present their final arguments.
You'd remember one of the worst days of your life. You test positive, your future's unsure, you don't have the girl, you're gonna get kicked off the team. Things are not going your way. And then it all just boils over.
Does this look anything like Rashawn Jones? Does this look anything like Rashawn Jones? Nothing. Paul Connor's selection is not reliable. It is not credible. Rashawn Jones was not at the Colony Apartments. Rashawn Jones did not shoot him. Rashawn Jones had nothing to do with his death. Rashawn Jones failed a drug test. He was at home at the time that Brian Patta was killed.
All rise for the jury.
This family has been put through so much for so long, and they get so close to what they believe is finally going to be justice for them. I can't even imagine what they're going through.
We are now on verdict watch as the jury evaluates the evidence in the murder of his teammate Brian Patta.
The only thing that is not a foregone conclusion here is what that jury is going to decide.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've received your note. I've received your note indicating that you continue to be deadlocked, and so at this time I will declare a mistrial and a hung jury. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case.
The breakdown was 5 for not guilty and 1 for guilty, and the person who was leaning to guilty was just unmoved.
This has to be extremely difficult for the family, and in particular, Jeanette, Brian's mother. She has called for justice for her son, her youngest child.
Anybody who's seen the video of Jeanette running down the street, wearing Brian's jersey, yelling,
"Give me my baby! Give me my baby! Give me my baby!"
and then to juxtapose that with her being wheeled into an elevator because she's so frail that she can't walk on her own, kept saying 20 years, 20 years.
We come here! We come here!
And she still has that same desperate plea in her voice.
We're frustrated, but we're also resilient. We're going to remain steadfast and confident that we're going to get the answers that we need.
What do you think you would do differently?
That's a hard question to answer. I'll leave that for the next trial.
There are no winners here. At the end of the day, we're still at the same place. We don't know who killed Brian. We don't know the truth, and I don't think we'll ever know the truth.
The damage is done. The lives of multiple individuals have been completely ruined.
His fate was really demoralizing and discouraging, not just for the Miami Hurricanes football program that fell into a precipitous decline after that. It was devastating for this city, and particularly for the community that Brian came from, which is always looking towards our athletes as role models, as symbols of hope and opportunity.
He did have such a love for the community that he was raised in, and he understood the importance of him making it.
And when you have a young person who's from this area and is able to advance not only the identity of Little Haiti, but become somewhat of an ambassador of the culture, and his life is taken way before its time, it's heartbreaking. Brian Potter's life and the tragedy of his experience is like a candle from the dark. And when that light is lost, it hurts us all.
What's going on? Hello?
You know, I'll look at a picture or something, I get emotional, but then I'll think back how we used to spend our times together and, you know, the jokes he would crack and, you know, the times we would spend and just those memories, the positive, you know, all the good stuff, you know, that, but you think of, oh man, he's not here anymore, you know. That's when the tears flow. A gentle giant.
Loving individual.
Full of life, full of energy, positive energy. Someone who's truly missed. It's still hard for us today.
A little bit after his death, I mean, I dreamt about Brian. He was talking to people, he was saying he's okay, I'm okay. I wasn't supposed to die, but I gotta go over on the other side. You guys won't see me anymore. God is letting me in the door now. Those were his words. Then a big purple door opened, and it's bright light, and he walks in between. He looks, and he waves. So I love everybody, I love everybody. Then he hugs me. It felt so real. And the door shuts behind him. And then that was it.
You know, it's a dream that keeps Brian connected to his loved ones. His family's journey for justice will continue as the state is expected to retry Rashawn Jones.
So more to come, David. For additional information on this story, you can listen to the 30 for 30 podcast, Murder at the U, which chronicles ESPN's 8-year investigation into the case. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.
One family.
Oh my God.
Possible 45.
2 horrible tragedies. That's pretty dark stuff. At sea and on land.
My father, he is in bed and someone shot him in the head.
Do you remember what you noticed?
First thing I thought is this crime scene is staged.
Linda always felt that she deserved more than what she was getting, because she and my dad were always butting heads.
We've got no weapons, we've got no enemies that we know of.
That we know of. And no more details, because she disappears.
I told her not to go on that boat.
So she went out of the way to give them information in case something happened.
Yes, indeed. It's just getting wilder and wilder because in the middle of the ocean, nobody can hear you scream.
Every fisherman has a story about the one that got away. And this is Nathan Carmen's. The 22-year-old was set to meet up with his mom, Linda, for a late-night fishing trip out here off the coast of Rhode Island. But for Linda, the trip was less about catching bass and more about bonding with her son.
Fishing was one of the things that brought them together, and that was Linda really giving herself to the experience because Linda hated fishing. Linda didn't eat fish, but she thought this is the only thing that made Nathan happy, and she wanted to connect with her son in any way possible.
That was a common occurrence. They used to go either weekly or sometimes bi-weekly.
Nathan and his mother, they'd taken a boating course. They had some fundamental knowledge, but they stuck pretty close to land and were fishing for stripers and blues.
Nathan's experience was, I would characterize him as a recreational fisherman.
Mom and son plan to cruise toward Block Island in this boat which Nathan recently bought, one that just passed inspection by the Coast Guard a month earlier. That's comforting to Linda, who has a better to be safe than sorry approach when it comes to boating.
So she begins to tell her friends about this fishing trip and shares information as to where they're going to be at specific times during that trip.
Linda is so cautious, she even texts photos of the boat and its registration number to her friends so it can be easily spotted if the boat breaks down.
You're relying on your engine, you're relying on electronics to get you there.
On a starless night with calm seas, the two depart Ram Point Marina in Rhode Island at about 11 p.m. Linda texts her friends that the journey is underway. The boat is never seen or heard from again.
One of my sisters had called me and said Linda and Nathan are missing. And I kind of freaked out.
Linda's friends begin to worry on Sunday of that weekend because Linda had claimed that she was going to come back and text them when she arrived.
Linda always did a float log. And, you know, when Linda got back, she'd call her friend Sharon, and Sharon never received the phone call.
That's when two of her best friends reach out to authorities and say, something has happened. There are two missing boaters off the coast of Rhode Island. We need your help.
It started out as a typical missing persons investigation, which is not criminal in nature. Our first order of business is naturally to find the missing people, gather the facts and circumstances to try to determine how they potentially went missing. Oftentimes people are not missing, they're just overdue.
The U.S. Coast Guard quickly begins a search over the Atlantic.
The United States Coast Guard really deployed every available resource that they had to find this missing boat. They deployed fixed-wing aircraft, reconnaissance planes, Coast Guard cutters.
Given the nature of the success rate that the Coast Guard has with search and rescue, I was very, very shocked that they were not finding anything.
We defer to the Coast Guard for search and rescue efforts. In that respect, they were really scouring the ocean, and the search efforts came up unsuccessful.
I think it was day 6 that the Coast Guard made a decision to call off any additional search. And at that point, they had covered 64,000 square nautical miles, which is a massive, massive search area.
So the Orient Lucky, which is a Chinese cargo ship, they were out around 115 miles south of Martha's Vineyard as they were shifting ballast in their ship.
The Orient Lucky routinely travels the high seas picking up cargo, but this time it will make headlines for picking up something else. Lucky indeed.
They saw what they believed was an orange ball popping out of the ocean about 1 square nautical mile from where the cargo ship was positioned at the time. And when they got a little closer, they realized it was a life raft. And inside that life raft was a figure, a young man standing and waving a flag in distress. Getting this large freighter close enough to not kill Nathan Carmen, but save Nathan Carmen was a challenge. And I think the captain made a certain maneuver that allowed them to get a little closer to Nathan where they could deploy a life ring, and the life ring landed several feet away from where the life raft was. So Nathan then had to jump out of the life raft and swim.
The stunned crew members document the rescue with a series of photos and videos. Once he's on board, Nathan is offered hot soup, water, and dry clothes.
I got a call from my supervisor saying that Nathan had been recovered by a passing ship. I was shocked and I was thankful that there was a survivor.
The rescue, a kind of needle in a haystack, becomes international news.
And a man lost at sea with his mother for 8 days has been found alive in good condition.
There were pictures of Nathan that were on the front page of newspapers all over the world because everybody thought that this was a wild story.
Next tonight here, the family mystery at sea. More than 100 miles from land, the discovery, and authorities asking what happened.
Nathan, this is United States Coast Guard Boston. Over.
Mom and I, two people, myself and my mom, were fishing, and there was a funny noise in the engine compartment. I looked and saw a lot of water. The boat dropped out from under my feet. When I saw the life raft, I did not see my mom. Have you found her?
No, we haven't been able to find her yet.
Nathan Carmen is still on that freighter. He's expected to arrive in Boston tomorrow night.
So now we can start to maybe get some insight as to what transpired and why it transpired. But it was also concerning because Linda hadn't been recovered.
Happy to be back on land, but exhausted by his ordeal, Nathan heads home and asks for privacy.
I would just like to thank the public for their prayers and for their concern for both my mother and for myself.
It's not the first time this family has dealt with drama and tragedy.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
This is a nautical map. The area that Nathan departed from is right up here. His transit would have taken him down this body of water here. And that is the point in which one of the individuals traveling inbound observed Nathan and Linda on the boat. And that was the last time that anyone saw the boat.
In the days and weeks after his dramatic sea rescue, Nathan finds himself just as alone on land as he was at sea. And he feels like the media has gotten his story wrong. So he agrees to an interview with ABC News.
Well, it would be great to have people embracing you, saying, we're glad you're home, we're glad you're alive. It hasn't been that.
Loneliness seems to be Nathan's constant companion. He grew up an only child. His parents divorced when he was little. Kids made fun of him at school.
I heard people trying to imitate him or, try to make fun of the way he spoke. And I've definitely seen people mock the way he ran down the hallway.
I got the impression that a lot of people didn't try to talk to him, and maybe that kind of contributed to his loneliness or feeling isolated and uncomfortable being in crowds and with other people.
His best friend in the world was one who wouldn't judge him, a horse named Cruz.
Yes, I was very fortunate in that regard, and I was able to really form a strong bond emotionally.
Cruz and Nathan had a very tight bond. It was definitely his best friend, his confidant. I went to the stable once with Linda and Nathan. We were ready to leave the stable. I said, well, where's Nathan? Go on in and get Nathan. She's like, no, Nathan loves to spend time with Cruz alone before we leave. And he was there for probably a good half hour, if not longer, just spending time with Cruz in his stall.
But when Nathan is 17, that bond shatters. Cruz dies. Devastated, Nathan runs away from his Connecticut home. Nathan doesn't stop running until he reaches Virginia, 600 miles away. That's where a sheriff's deputy finds him.
Running away from home was something that I felt that I had to do at the time. I don't fully understand or comprehend that sitting here now.
A couple of interesting things Nathan had on him, on his possession when he was found in Virginia. He had $4,000 in cash. That money had been given to him by his grandfather, but he also had a couple of photos of his horse, Cruz. And he had a Ziploc bag with some of the horse's hair in it.
His parents drive all night to Virginia to bring Nathan home.
Clark Carmen told me that Nathan had fled to a horse farm, or that's where he was supposed to be going, in Florida, because Nathan had told his father that that was a place that he could feel normal.
Nathan is diagnosed with Asperger's, which we now know as autism spectrum disorder. Social interactions and communication skills can be challenging.
I'm not someone who understands relationships or who's good about talking about emotions.
But Nathan does share a close relationship with his grandfather, John Chocolos, a wealthy real estate developer who made his fortune in the nursing home business.
My dad had 5 sisters and 4 daughters, and then he had his first grandchild. That I think Linda was really excited that she had a boy to bring into my dad's life.
And then Nathan comes along, and he's your uncle's first grandchild. He doted on him.
Right.
How excited was he to have a grandson?
I mean, there's not really even words for it. He had such great hopes for that kid.
Tell me about the daughters in the family.
I think they were all different individuals. Elaine was the oldest. The next one down was Linda. She was more like John, personality-wise. Charlene is the next one down. Valerie's the youngest. I think she was kind of like the apple of John's eye.
My grandfather was the closest person to me. He was like a father to me, and I know I was like a son to him.
When it comes to business, Nathan, a teenager, has a pretty unusual role at his grandfather's company, one that requires him to look and listen closely.
John Chocolos brought Nathan to all of his business dealings because John Chocolos was hard of hearing, and Nathan was his both eyes and ears at every business meeting. They would consult each other after the business meetings were completed. So I think that, you know, John Chocolos was grooming Nathan to take over the family business.
I got the feeling that John had a very good relationship with him and was trying to cultivate that. Nathan was as introverted as John was extroverted, I think.
What was his relationship like as Nathan is growing up? You said there weren't enough words.
He kind of treated him the same way that he treated me when I was a kid. You know, I mean, he couldn't do enough for him. The only problem with it is that John always looked at a problem. If there's a problem, if you throw enough money at it, it's going to solve it.
John Chocolos doted on Nathan, gave him anything he wanted, whether it was a credit card or a new truck or a new apartment. There was nothing that Nathan needed because John was always there with his checkbook or his credit card to give Nathan anything he wanted.
With a support system like his granddad, Nathan's future could be limitless until one phone call changes everything.
Oh my God! Oh my God! The front door was locked. Oh my God!
Possible 45.
Oh my God! I don't even know what to do. I don't even know where to look.
Windsor, Connecticut, a typical small town. Pretty nice community. You know, not a lot of crime. Murders in Windsor are very rare.
Not rare enough for the man living on Overlook Drive. John Chocolos was a self-made man here in Windsor, Connecticut, running his multi-million-dollar real estate business out of his modest home. That is until the morning of December 20th, 2013. Police arrive here after getting an urgent 911 call.
Okay, what's your emergency?
I came to check on my father to pick him up for an activity. He is in bed and someone shot him in the head.
Is he still alive?
I don't think so. I walked into the bedroom and there's blood all over the back wall.
When I saw the news and my dad being brought out, you know, in a body bag and them saying it was a murder, and I lost it. I lost it. I fell to the floor and I'm crying hysterically.
My name is Scott McGregor. In 2013, I was a detective for the Windsor Police Department. Mr. Choclos was found in a bedroom on the upper part of the house. In his bed, we found him that he had been shot 3 times.
The scene says a lot to the detective, not for what's in the house, but for what isn't.
You obviously start looking for evidence, and when you can't find spent shell casings, once again, you go back to whoever did this, took the time to retrieve those casings and not leave evidence behind. That kind of tells us that the person planned this out knew to cover their steps, which ultimately makes our investigation harder.
Sergeant Chris McKee also gets the call to head to Overlook Drive, a quiet street with a quiet resident who wasn't exactly well known around town. How did he fit into the community in terms of how he had accumulated his wealth? Was he kind of like a little local success story?
I gotta say, he ran in his circles and his business circles. He wasn't known in Windsor, and I was very active in community roles in the department, and like I said, I wasn't aware of him until this investigation.
McKee walks into a bloody scene. You're looking around the room. Do you remember what you noticed?
A little further down from Mr. Choclos' bedroom, there was a glass door, or a door with glass panes that led into the backyard. The officer and I observed that there was broken glass.
A break-in?
Well, it looked like it was meant to be a break-in, but looking at it, it was very clear that the glass had been punched from the wrong side, and it was very suspicious. First thing I thought is this crime scene is staged.
The recently widowed victim was known to keep cash in his house, but after the shots were fired, the gunman left. The money still there. Was there any sense that it had been ransacked or robbed?
There had been large sums of money in the house and other valuables, and honestly, nothing appeared touched. It told me that this was personal.
The devastated family speaks out on local news, hoping to catch a killer.
My father, while he lived a small life, he was a very large man. And to know him, you could never forget him.
Anyone could have done this.
This person killed at least once that we know of. This person's gotten away with murder. And chances are it will happen again.
When we start any murder investigation, we want to do a timeline. We want to start trying to find out who was with John.
My father, my mother passed November 21st. My father for 2 weeks was staying with one of us, or Linda was staying at my father's house.
Another curious thing about the home, it doesn't exactly look like a millionaire lives there. One of the victim's daughters explains why.
My father has an elaborate estate. The man's worth at least $40 to $50 million. It's huge. You wouldn't know it going into the house. That's the only reason why I'm bringing up my father's financial worth. Is because looking at this house, you would not know that he has a 25,000 square foot house up in New Hampshire.
You find out that this is a prominent businessman, a wealthy businessman.
Yep.
What does that say to you initially about this?
Kind of starts to focus investigators in on, was this financially motivated? Did this gentleman had a lot of money, a lot of properties? Did someone have something to gain financially from his death?
The videos of the Windsor police interviewing various family members have never been broadcast before.
Nathan and I went fishing. We went out of Point Judith, Rhode Island. Okay. So we went on a cod trip that left at 6 in the morning, got back into port at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
A long day.
We learned that John, the day before, the last person to see him was his grandson, Nathan Carmen. We learned that through talking to Nathan, talking to family.
Hey Nathan, what's your last name? My last name is spelled C-A-R-M-A-N.
We have to treat everyone as a possible suspect. family, associates, people who worked in the office, neighbors, anything. Anyone could have done this.
Investigators asked Nathan about employees at Chocolos's company, and the grandson mentions one who, he says, complains about being overworked and underpaid.
Just that I'm underpaid, also the stress load. I have 101 things to do. I have to get all these papers in. Now you're asking me to do this and the other thing. So he would bitch and moan about that.
The bookkeeper is, in fact, stealing from the Chocolos's company.
So obviously he's someone we want to talk to.
Nathan begins outlining his final evening with his grandfather to investigators. It begins with dinner. He was going to come here and eat that night with Nathan.
That was the plan, and he wanted me to come too. And, you know, I said, look, you know, you guys go do it. If I only knew what I knew, you know, now.
After their meal, Nathan and his grandfather return to the Windsor home. At some point, John Chocolos gets a phone call and puts it on speaker.
I think that there's a real possibility that the person who called him may have been a mistress. I don't like saying that my grandfather was doing that, but I think there's that real possibility.
It wasn't one of your aunts?
No, it was not one of my aunts. It was not one of my aunts, no one in the family. Very young, 20, 30. And he then told that female voice to just wait. Hold on a second. He showed me to the door.
Nathan Carmen is correct. There is a young woman Chocolos has been talking to.
And she became a suspect. Did you go anywhere else that night or anything like that? Or did you just stay home?
No, I didn't sleep because I had to be at. I was supposed to be at meet my mom at 3 o'clock. When I fall asleep, I have difficulty waking up. So I tried to stay awake. I did run out to Stop and Shop, and I got some ice cream for myself. I picked up a few AAA batteries because I was out of them, and then I headed home. Then I stayed until I went back out to meet my mom.
Investigators don't have much to go on, with the exception of some security camera footage, which they use to retrace the last days of John Chocolos's life. Like this casino video, where the 87-year-old is seen with a much younger woman. Will it provide investigators with answers? The Windsor Police Department may not know who killed John Chocolos yet, but they are beginning to understand who did not. Remember the woman Nathan heard on the phone? And the woman at the casino? They are one and the same.
So John Chocolos struck up a relationship with a 25-year-old woman over the course of a year.
She was an acquaintance of John who was going to the casino, staying overnight. The night of the homicide, she confirmed that she had talked to John, but she was kind of quickly dismissed as being involved.
Investigators have also tracked down that bookkeeper Nathan mentioned. His name is William Sati, and he too is cleared.
He had an alibi that night and was confirmed. I think he was actually out of the state at the time. I think we found him in Rhode Island.
While cleared as a suspect in the murder, Sati was later convicted of stealing some $400,000 from Chocolos's company.
But that's small change compared to the money the patriarch was handing over to family members every year.
One of the problem children was Linda. Linda was taking John's allowances and going off on spending sprees at casinos or going skiing or taking these lavish trips around the world.
Linda always felt that she deserved more than what she was getting. I don't know why she felt that way. I don't know, because she and my dad were always butting heads.
Father and daughter also butt heads over the way Nathan is being raised.
The relationship between John and Linda was always volatile, but one day it turned violent. And that was over Nathan's care. Nathan was put into a psychiatric hospital shortly after his horse, Cruz, had died. And the accusations began to fly. Linda accuses John of smothering her son with all sorts of riches, and John is yelling at Linda, saying that she is a bad mother and that Nathan is normal and that Nathan should be treated as such. And at one point, John reaches across the table and grabs Linda by the hair and starts to pull it. So Linda swings and she starts to fight back at her father. And it's a combustible moment that probably lasted a minute plus, and they're swinging at each other, they're fighting each other, and the orderlies are summoned as well as the local police, and Linda is arrested right on the spot.
Linda chalks it up as two people cut from the same cloth.
I don't back down for my father. Yeah.
And that's just his personality not to back down.
Yeah,
Sure.
and it's not his personality back down either. So if anyone would have fought with him, you know, it would have been me.
Linda has spent many more years fighting to protect her son from those who might treat him unkindly.
I know he led a very lonely life. You know, it's at the age where kids were being invited to birthday parties and, you know, having play dates. And nobody was calling for Nathan to go to the birthday party. And, you know, it was sad. And she hated that for her child. You know, any mother would hate it if her child wasn't included in anything. But yeah, it must have been hard for Linda not being able to fix that. Linda was a fixer. Linda had to fix things, or at least try to fix things, and she just could not fix that.
Linda and Nathan had a very unique and conflicted relationship. Nathan saw his mother as somebody who was incredibly domineering, and Linda was always trying to get him the therapy that she thought he needed. And I think Nathan wanted to get as far away from his mother as possible because Nathan didn't want to feel different from anybody else.
And with his grandfather, Nathan feels like a success. He learns about business, he's a confidant to John Chocolos, his college tuition is paid for, and so is the rent on his apartment and his credit card bills. Linda couldn't compete with that.
I think what it comes down to is Nathan's always felt torn between me and my father.
Picking sides.
Like he had to pick a side.
How's your relationship in general to your mother?
I did move out of our house, and when we were not on good terms, but I since started speaking to her again. Probably about a year ago.
Did that concern you at all in terms of looking at him as a suspect, that maybe he might exhibit behavior that you wouldn't normally see, but he does have a disorder?
That was a concern of many of us, are the behaviors we're seeing, are the answers he's giving in that one interview that he did grant, are these more aligned with behaviors perhaps of someone who is on the autism spectrum? Or can we look at these for what we normally would kind of think, this is kind of sketchy, a little suspicious, we want to delve more into this.
Was your grandpa involved during that time?
Yes, my grandpa, he facilitated financially my ability to go off on it.
So for Linda, the recent fishing trips are a way of pulling her son back into her life. But now there's the murder of her father to deal with and lots of money at stake. Everybody is under the microscope.
Do you own any weapons?
No.
Anybody else in the family own any weapons?
No.
Anybody have access to any weapons? Anybody that knows anybody that has weapons? Nothing at all. Okay. So we've got no weapons, we've got no enemies we know of.
That we know of.
Do you own any firearms?
I do have an air gun. I'm not sure if that counts as a firearm, but...
Is it the only?
Yes, it is.
But after speaking with a long line of friends, family, and business associates, investigators are about to realize they've been lied to. In the wake of 87-year-old John Chocolos' brutal murder, investigators have few leads, with one notable exception: fragments of the bullets fired at the victim. There's hope that they could be traced back to a possible murder weapon. What kind of weapon was used to kill him?
It was believed to be a rifle because it was a .308 cartridge, you know, a certain type of bullet.
And a ballistics test concludes the gun used was most likely a Sig Sauer rifle like this one.
But in the wake of the Newtown massacre, these types of weapons were illegal to own in Connecticut, where Chocolos was murdered.
The detectives focused a lot of their attention on New Hampshire. They scoured gun dealers, I think well over 600 gun dealers, looking for that Sig Sauer rifle.
Eventually, investigators make their way to a place called Shooter's Outpost and speak with salesman Jed Warner about recent purchases. He remembers an interaction with a customer just weeks earlier.
He definitely stood out because he looked like he came off like a construction site. His pants were dirty. He was wearing like a pair of like dirty boots, like a construction feel about him. We started talking about rifles and targeting. He said, actually, I'm very interested in the Sig Sauer 716.
It's an expensive rifle, retailing for almost $2,000. Jed says he suggested other options that were more economical for target shooting, but the buyer knows what he wants.
We do all the paperwork, do the background, he passes. He just kind of walked straight out, and that was the last we saw of him. 2 officers from the Windsor area were there, and then a local, like a Connecticut ATF agent. We had to like go through all the stuff, try to figure out the day of sale.
And there they find it, a bill of sale for a Sig Sauer rifle. The name of the purchaser, Nathan Carmen.
And that became an incredible aha moment for investigators and potentially the smoking gun in this case.
After the discovery at Shooter's Outpost, Nathan is asked again about owning any guns.
And since, because I just wasn't feeling safe at home, I did buy a shotgun.
You did buy a shotgun?
That's correct.
Any other purchases of a firearm anytime?
No.
And that wasn't ever volunteered or brought up until investigators found this out-of-state bill of sale and then confronted Nathan with it.
And how did he respond?
Well, he acknowledged that he had bought this weapon. When asked about it, he said he lost it. And he didn't know where the gun was.
That had to be really a red flag for you all.
It was.
Most people don't lose those firearms or any firearm. But yeah, you don't normally hear, I don't know where it is.
And there was no report of him, making a report that it was stolen, lost, etc.
So what are you thinking at this point? You've been kind of connecting these dots.
Well, it gets better. There was at least 1 hour of unaccounted time during which Mr. Chocolos was shot that Nathan couldn't account for his time.
Linda arrives at this Home Depot parking lot at 3 a.m., where she and Nathan are set to meet up to go fishing. But Nathan is nowhere to be found.
You left your house on about 3, and we know you got to Glassbury, based on your own words, on or about 4. Why would it take an hour to travel, and I'm guessing 20-something miles, at the rate of 65 miles an hour? It's just mathematically not possible.
On or around 3, not about 3.
So
perhaps after.
But this security footage taken outside Nathan's apartment complex shows him leaving at 2:57 a.m. Linda tries calling her son 3 times, but his phone appears to be turned off. He finally calls her back at 4:01 a.m. Did you think you were closing in on an arrest?
I thought so. Yes.
I have to ask you straight up, were you involved in your grandfather's death? Did you kill him?
Absolutely not. No.
But that potential smoking gun, the Sig Sauer rifle, is still missing. Despite a months-long extensive search of Nathan's apartment, the Chocolos estate, and surrounding areas for that crucial piece of evidence, it's nowhere to be found.
And I think that's exactly what they were pinning their entire case on, was that murder weapon. Had they found it and connected it to Nathan, then Nathan would have been in handcuffs.
And so law enforcement was directed to keep working to try to build the case.
This had to be frustrating.
It just tears at you because, you think you've got it. The family had put up a huge billboard on Interstate 91, and coming and going to work every day, I would see that. I would see Mr. Chocolos's face. I would see, reward money for information.
Even though Nathan is under a cloud of suspicion, he's still a free man, but feels like he's an outcast in his own community now. So he takes a portion of his inheritance that had been given to him by his grandfather, and he leaves the state. He travels to Vermont, and he buys an historic farmhouse, and he also bought a boat.
Nathan buys a 31-foot fishing boat, formerly called the Chicken Pox. He plans another fishing outing with his mom, Linda, who has stood by him throughout all the accusations.
And Linda is very excited about that opportunity, but also very concerned because she knows that her son is not an experienced fisherman or an experienced boater.
Linda tells friends that the plan was to fish off the coast of Block Island and head back the next morning.
She was so concerned that she had a text message conversation with people ashore, and that's a smart thing to do, to let people know what your plans are.
So she went out of the way to give them information in case something happened.
Yes, indeed.
When Linda fails to check in, her friends start to worry.
Two of her best friends reach out to authorities and say, something has happened, we need your help.
At first, we were like, okay, hopefully it's just they're overdue and they're going to come back to shore.
But after several days elapse, authorities search Nathan's home and vehicle and find some alarming items.
We start thinking that he may have intent to either harm himself and his mother or both of them.
How did you get word that something had gone wrong with that?
My cousin Charlene called me and told me that they were missing. And I said, I told her not to go on that boat.
Here is Nathan in a 31-foot aluminum boat with his mother, who's got no experience boating, and he thinks that he's the master fisherman or the master boater. Or does he think this is the perfect place to kill his mother? Because in the middle of the ocean, nobody can hear you scream.
But what really happened on that boat? Nathan Carmen answers tough questions under oath.
How often did you lie to the Windsor Police Department?
There was one inaccurate.
Staring out at that open water, probably wondering what happened to my mother, or thinking, did I just get away with murder?
His mother is still missing and feared dead.
And the question becomes, what happened? Everybody wants to know what happened.
I didn't know if she had been dragged down with the ship. Neither of us had been wearing life vests.
The media coverage was huge.
I'm just asking you to defend yourself against these people who are saying that you did something to your boat that would make it sink.
Yeah, we're done for this evening, period.
He was shooting himself in the foot on national TV.
It is absolutely unfair for the police to use the tragedy that happened to my mother and I as an opportunity to try to nail me for a murder that I didn't commit.
Nathan's grandfather, John Chockless, had been shot to death 3 years prior to the disappearance of Linda Carmen. And once those connections were made, the story amplified.
You were convinced that Nathan had killed his grandfather.
Correct.
And now you're convinced that he killed his own mother?
It's a story about greed and heartless brutality.
Mr. Chockless was found in a bedroom on the upper part of the house, in his bed, shot several times in the head. We have to treat everyone as a possible suspect. Anyone could have done this.
But my sisters had told me they suspected Nathan. And that just totally blew me out of the water.
The daughters of John Chockless got very angry that there was really nothing happening with the case. They couldn't find the murder weapon. They hadn't arrested Nathan Carmen.
And it's just getting wilder and wilder.
Could a family be this burdened to have
a second catastrophic event. I didn't know. This is slowly starting to move from a missing persons case to something other than a missing persons case.
It's been 3 years since John Chocolos's murder, with no charges ever filed. Now, the family is facing yet another tragedy as Chocolos's grandson, Nathan Carmen's boat sinks on a fishing trip, with Nathan's mom, Linda, missing and presumed drowned. We're going to head out on a ride on the open water to get a better idea of what happened out here. I met up with Dave Farrell, a maritime lawyer for Nathan's boat insurers. So let's pick up with when the Coast Guard gets involved in this.
They had a lot of vessels out here. They had a lot of aerial searches, and they were really crisscrossing an area that eventually was 64,000 square miles.
That's a big coverage area.
Yeah, the state of Georgia.
And then 2 days later, there's a big shock.
The Orient Lucky finds a life raft 106 miles south of Martha's Vineyard, and in it is Nathan Carmen alone.
With his crew already snapping pictures and recording video, the ship's captain is alerted to a life raft in the water.
After spotting Nathan Carmen and his life raft at sea, I sounded the alarm for our crew to prepare for the rescue efforts, and we were ready to rescue him.
They threw him a life ring, and he grabbed it with his hands. He got dragged up toward the hull of the ship. He was able to push off the side of the ship with his outstretched hand, and he was able to climb up the gangway.
He got onto the ladder. We pulled the ladder up on board.
When Nathan gets aboard the Orient Lucky, the kid looked like Aquaman. There was no physical distress in his well-being. He wasn't dehydrated. He was not hypothermic.
The captain of the Orient Lucky doesn't see anything wrong with him. This is astounding.
I got the call from my supervisor that he'd been located and recovered. I was shocked, and I was thankful. I was happy that there was a survivor, but it was also concerning because Linda hadn't been recovered.
When I found out that, Linda was lost at sea and, I knew she wasn't coming back, it was just, I just had flashbacks of us growing up and just, the good times that we did have. And then, of course, the guilt and the regret that I had of how I treated her in the end. You just don't think that you're going to lose somebody so suddenly like that.
We receive a call from the Coast Guard that Nathan was picked up by a merchant vessel in the shipping lanes in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. First thing you say is, okay, where's Linda? Linda's not with him, just Nathan.
Back on land, with his lawyer present, Nathan's interviewed by Alfred Bucco, an investigator with the South Kingston, Rhode Island Police Department. This audio's never been broadcast before.
I just went in there and said, Nathan, tell me what happened.
We went out to Block Canyon. It was light, but the sun wasn't over the horizon yet. And we started trolling. Okay. And I heard strange noise coming from the engine compartment. So I opened up the hatch in front of the pilot house, and I saw that there was a lot of water in the bilge.
He went and shut down the engine and moved aft to where his mother was.
He said he told his mom to reel in the lines. How did he describe what was happening with the commotion?
He said to his mother only one thing during this calamity, and it was reel in the lines. And she said only one thing in return, okay, I will. At that point, he went up into the wheelhouse, and he says that he started moving emergency gear up to the bow. He wasn't quite ready to abandon ship, but he wanted to be ready.
I didn't realize we were sinking. Okay. I knew there was water in the bilge. I knew there was a lot of water because it was already up to that level, just why I wanted to bring the safety stuff as a precaution. Okay. But I thought I was going to find the problem and fix it.
The third time He's been in the wheelhouse and failed to radio. He's walking forward to the bow, and all of a sudden, in a split second, the boat sinks.
Boats don't sink that fast.
No. And it sank quickly, like immediately it was out of sight. And that's how he says he never saw his mother again.
He calls for his mother throughout the rest of the day, and he said upon nightfall, you know, he gave up trying to search for her, and he went to sleep and then drifted through the Atlantic Ocean until he was located. So let's get back to your mother. You talk to her, you know, all the time. You know, you go out fishing twice a week. How would you describe, you know, your relationship with her? Is it good?
I don't see the relevance to this particular incident here. Yeah, I concur.
You don't want
this interview's over. Thank you, though.
After the interview is over, from our perspective, we're like, okay, this isn't just a missing persons investigation. We may be dealing with maybe a homicide.
Captain Hengdong observed Nathan walking the deck of the Orient Lucky for hours at a time by himself, staring out at that open water, probably wondering what happened to my mother, or thinking, did I just get away with murder?
And soon, the whole world will hear from Nathan Carman in his own words.
She'd always been kind of reluctant about safety. I guess she had good reason to be.
New developments in that mystery at sea. Rescued after 8 days in a life raft, searchers had given up.
Nathan Carman and his mother went fishing last week. He survived the ordeal, but his mother didn't make it.
Now authorities are trying to figure out what happened.
The media coverage was huge. This was a story that made headlines around the country.
Initially, Nathan avoids the media, but eventually agrees to an interview with then ABC News correspondent Lindsay Janis in 2017. At his suggestion, they meet at a park near his home.
So take me through that evening. You met at the marina in Rhode Island, and then what?
Oh, we met at the marina in Rhode Island, and we had bait, which we got on board. And as we were heading out into the harbor, I had asked her a couple times in the past, oh, will you go to the canyons with me? And she'd always been kind of reluctant about safety, and I guess she had good reason to be.
While Nathan and Linda were still missing and the Coast Guard scouring the Atlantic, investigators back on land began searching through their vehicles here at this marina, looking for clues that might help in the search.
It looked like he had been somewhat almost living out of his truck or sleeping in his truck. We found some receipts from different marine stores.
Items purchased at area marinas in the hours before the fateful voyage included a rock-type anchor that would never have worked for Nathan's boat, and then some lengths of chain. They were curious purchases.
But there was also a bucket of eels that was in Nathan's truck. That stood out to me because eels are often used as bait when fishing for striped bass. And if you left the dock and didn't take your bait, what are you using for bait if you're going fishing?
Nathan tells us the same story he told police, that his mom had been concerned about safety ahead of the boat trip.
And I want to stress that it wasn't an argument, because I want to stress that it was not an argument. She had always been kind of skittish. We're stopping right here with that question.
Oh, okay.
But why not reach out for help? The Coast Guard said there was no Mayday call.
I had a radio, and there was also an EPIRB, which is an emergency position indicating radio beacon, on the boat, like someone needs to be medevaced, or when you know you're sinking. But I didn't know that we were sinking until we sank.
Nathan said that there was a lot of commotion going on and the water was being taken on in here. So where would his mom have been when all of this is happening?
Right where you are.
So she would have been right back in this area?
Yes.
But they're not speaking? I mean, and she doesn't know that they're going down?
Nathan has excellent line of sight on her the whole time, and yet he says he never saw her afterwards.
At that point, I didn't know if she had been dragged down with the ship, because neither of us had been wearing life vests. I assumed that if she had been on the surface, that she would have been calling out to me and I would have been able to find her.
According to Nathan, days go by and he huddles on the life raft, keeping a lookout for rescuers.
I was looking out at the horizon for other ships or for helicopters when conditions were good. When the waves were high, because they got to like 13 feet and they were breaking waves at a few points, a few days.
It must have been terrifying.
Yes.
But to some, Nathan's claim of drifting for over a week in rough seas before being rescued defies belief.
The initial videos showing this guy walking up the gangway of the ship without any great problem. He seemed to be just fine.
You would be in dire straits after, 5 or 6 days.
If you laid on that couch for 8 days and you got up to go to the bathroom, your legs would be wobbly because you haven't used them.
At the same time that Nathan and Linda's vehicles were searched at the docks, police in Vermont were conducting a search of Nathan's house, which was under construction.
The investigators find, modems, SIM cards, a few other things. The one thing they don't find is a computer. Whatever computer he was using to conduct his online purchases has disappeared.
Another item that was seized during the search was a lengthy letter that Nathan had written to an unknown priest that described his relationship and his view of his mother.
My mother's bullying, calling me a quitter, a stuck-up snob who thinks he is a king, and a piece of basically characterized my childhood. One night, though, I went to bed imagining myself as essentially a master of my own hell, joying in inflicting grave bodily suffering on other people. So, yeah.
After his interview with Alfred Bucco, Nathan has all but stopped talking to the police and is never questioned about the letter or his missing computer. Reporter Lindsay Janis is one of the few people he is willing to talk to.
I know I wasn't responsible for anything that resulted from the boat sinking. I know I wasn't responsible for my mom's death.
You were convinced that Nathan had killed his grandfather.
Correct.
And now you're convinced that he killed his own mother?
Yes.
That's pretty dark stuff. If the interview hadn't already made Nathan's story seem a little fishy, the follow-up was even more eye-opening.
I did not cause my mother's death. We're done here this evening.
If you have nothing to hide, there shouldn't be a problem answering the questions.
Oh, Dave.
Oh, hi, Dave. Nice to meet you. Hi, how are you?
I'm Matt. Nice
hi,
to meet you.
Matt, nice to meet you, Matt. Thanks so much for taking us out. Initially, when everybody else was scratching their heads and wondering, wow, this poor guy, what happened to his mom? For the average person out there who's looking at this and taking it at face value, folks who know the water, like you do, had your doubts.
Absolutely. People had doubts about this story from the beginning.
With Linda Carmen presumed lost at sea, her reportedly tumultuous relationship with her son Nathan was under renewed scrutiny. He sits down with 2020 for a second interview, which now holds new significance.
If someone said that you did not get along with your mother, that you did not like her, is there any truth to that at all?
No, there's not any truth to that. Our relationship had grown from where it had been. We did have a challenging relationship at one point in my life, but she was the closest person in the world to me after my grandfather passed.
Will you inherit all of what your mother had?
That's something that I can't comment on at this time.
But unbeknownst to Nathan, his mom has decided not to leave him any inheritance. She even records a video message obtained exclusively by 2020 explaining that he won't be getting her house.
Hey, big guy, I guess if you're watching this, you're watching this. I want to explain why I did what I did and why my will is stated the way it is. I feel that when you moved out, you took everything that was of value to you and everything you wanted. That's my feeling.
And in her written last will and testament, dated 3 years before she disappeared, Linda explicitly excludes Nathan as a beneficiary.
By now, more details of John Chocolos's death and the subsequent investigation have risen to the surface.
Initially, the media was unaware that Nathan's grandfather, John Chocolos, had been shot to death in his bed 3 years prior to the disappearance of Linda Carmen. And once those connections were made, the story amplified. It wasn't a bittersweet rescue story anymore. It was something potentially much more devious.
So, at what point in your life would you say that you became really close with your grandfather?
Here's where I have a bit of an issue. My understanding was we were going to be sitting down and we were going to be talking about
yeah, the raft is my next bit, but we did explain that we need to hear about your whole life leading up to this incident. How can people know who Nathan is if we don't tell them? What was your relationship like with your grandfather?
I'm not talking about my relationship with my grandfather or with if you want to ask me any more questions on that line, we're done here.
Can you tell me more about what your grandfather did? He was a big figure in this part of the country.
That's not what this interview is about.
He gets really defensive if people pry a little bit too much. And the way that he shut her off on so many questions and wouldn't cooperate, he was shooting himself in the foot on national TV.
Since we spoke a week ago, there's been a lot of speculation. People are suspicious of you. What do you want to say to those people who are saying something about his story that just isn't adding up?
I'm not aware that those people exist.
There are suspicions about the boat trip. Since we last got together a week ago,
I've said the way it happened.
I'm just asking you to defend yourself against these people who are saying that you did something to your boat that would make it sink.
That's not true.
Nathan had never been interviewed at length by a network or by a reporter, so this was something new to Nathan, and I think Nathan thought it was going to go one way when it certainly went another way.
Was there an issue with the boat that needed to be fixed?
No, there were. We're done.
Nathan, I'm trying to give you an opportunity to speak out against these allegations that have been made.
The only way that I can speak out against them is to say what actually happened, and that's what I've been trying to do.
Another thing that's happened since we last got together, police searched your mom's home.
Yeah,
did you know anything about that?
We're done for this evening, period. We're done here.
We're not trying to make you uncomfortable. We're trying to give you an opportunity to answer some of these allegations.
We're done here this evening.
If you have nothing to hide, there shouldn't be a problem answering the questions.
He walked out. He walked out of the interview, only to come back.
Police never arrested you for the murder of your grandfather. Do you think it is unfair that people are bringing that up and talking about that now?
It is absolutely unfair for the police to use the tragedy that happened to my mother and I as an opportunity to try to nail me for a murder that I didn't commit.
Can you understand when people see that you were the last person to see two people alive? They see that and they say you are either the most unlucky man alive or you had something to do with those two deaths. What do you say to that?
I say that there's no relationship.
Later that month, Nathan holds a memorial service for his mom. It's sparsely attended by some of her friends. Linda's sisters are notably absent.
Now, Linda hasn't even been declared dead yet. Nobody in his family is willing to go because many of us in his family believe that Nathan is truly the culprit.
I'm very grateful to the friends and family who attended in memory of my mom.
Nathan, you've been through so much. How have you been these last several weeks?
It's been very difficult.
We had no boat. We had no body. But as in any investigation, there's always evidence that can be recovered. It's just a matter of making sure that you know where to look.
There's all hands on deck at that point to try to uncover the truth.
As with the death of John Chocolos, according to investigators, there isn't enough evidence to charge Nathan with a crime. But in a twist of fate, a seemingly innocuous insurance claim for the sunken boat is about to take the saga of Nathan Carman in an unexpected direction.
Some of these strange occurrences maybe could be chalked up to an inexperienced fisherman, a guy who's panicking.
You know, I spent a lot of time with Nathan. I think he was cold, calculating, and had this whole story planned out to explain the disappearance of his mother and the sinking of the vessel.
The idea that he drifted for a week in that life raft just didn't hold water for you.
Not even for a second.
The Nathan Carman case was incredibly explosive. A young man is plucked out of the ocean. That just conjures up all of these images of, say, Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Author Casey Sherman has spent the last 2.5 years researching the case for his new book, Blood in the Water.
The story is so complex and it has so many layers to it. Not only do you have one potential murder, but it's the story about a family and how wealth can corrupt.
As investigators continue digging into Nathan Carman's story of being lost at sea, he takes action, filing an insurance claim for $85,000 to recoup the loss of his boat, the chickenpox.
It happened very promptly, and that indicated to me that this guy's really serious.
The insurance company is not going to pay Nathan. In fact, they are going to take Nathan to court. Nathan also didn't back down.
We filed our suit to deny insurance coverage. We were in for a fight. We came away with the distinct impression that almost everything he said to us was a lie. There were holes in every aspect of his story.
Holes in his story and his boat. Here at this marina where Nathan's odyssey began, fellow boaters noticed odd behavior in him the day before that fateful trip.
It kind of caught my eye when I saw him leaning over the back and drilling 2 holes in the transom of the boat. I asked him, "What are you doing?" That's why he told me, he says, he's taking the trim tabs off.
Trim tabs are stabilization devices that help lift the boat up higher on the water. Nathan admits to removing them, leaving holes in his boat, but says he patched them up with a marine putty.
I patched the holes. They seemed to be well patched. And at the time my mom and I went out, I felt that one, I knew those holes were above the water line, and 2, I felt that they were securely patched.
The idea that he was patching up those holes, that putty, the patching didn't work?
It wouldn't work. My theory is that he was trying to make it look like he was deliberately altering the boat in a dangerous fashion.
So that maybe it looked like he made a mistake.
He's very calculating. He wanted people to be able to point to, oh, no wonder the boat sank.
Attorney Dave Farrow represented Nathan's boat insurance companies and has looked into Nathan's account of what happened for years. Nathan's story is that his boat started taking on water, but he failed to put out a distress call because he didn't think the boat was sinking. One would think then maybe he would call out for help, the Mayday situation, right? Did he do that?
No, and he had ample opportunity, because each of the times that he went into the wheelhouse to carry gear forward, he was within arm's length of the microphone for his VHF radio, and a good one.
This is where the emergency equipment is, right? Here?
Yeah, right here. A microphone within arm's reach. And he came in here 3 times to get survival gear and bring it up to the bow. So he was within an arm's length 3 times he could have picked it up.
All of these things sound pretty odd. Maybe you can chalk them up to panic and inexperienced fishermen, but you would have to have hard evidence to really show that he wasn't where he should have been.
I got an oceanographer to assess whether it was possible for him to drift in a life raft to where the Orient Lucky picked him up 7 days later.
And was it?
Absolutely impossible. Physically impossible.
I looked at drifting buoys, I looked at historical data, I looked at thermal images of the Gulf Stream rings. All of these different systems showed the currents going westward, and Nathan claimed he drifted eastward. And that did not make any sense.
And Nathan's aunts aren't buying his alleged fish tales either.
New twists in a story making national headlines involving Nathan Carmen.
They file what is known as a slayer petition, which prevents a person from inheriting property from someone they murdered.
Nathan Carmen's aunts do not want him to inherit that money, and they say essentially profit off of 2 deaths they believe he caused.
When Nathan walks into court, he's actually got a suit, and he's cleaned up, he's shaven.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Nathan Carmen appearing on my own behalf.
He looks like a young, aspiring law student.
The loss of my mom has been extremely difficult for me, so I can sympathize with petitioners in that respect.
He ended up taking depositions. He ended up going into court and arguing motions.
I'll say that some of the petitioners had awfully substantial motive, and I had very, very little.
He ended up putting up his own defense.
You saw him sort of tell the truth the whole time. But in this deposition obtained by 2020, it's Nathan in the hot seat.
This is the deposition of Nathan Carmen.
Did you have a close relationship with your mother, Linda Carmen?
I would say that I did, yes.
When asked to respond to claims that he lied to police during their interviews with him in 2013, Nathan clams up.
How often did you lie to the Windsor Police Department?
There was one inaccurate. I'm pleading the 5th.
Pleading the 5th as to lying to the Windsor Police Department after your grandfather is dead.
That's what
correct?
he said.
Okay.
Nathan pleads the 5th 81 times during this deposition.
I plead the 5th. I plead the 5th. I plead the 5th. And I plead the 5th.
Meaning he declines to answer questions to avoid potentially incriminating himself.
I plead the 5th.
That's damaging to Nathan, I think, in the public's mind. Who takes the 5th? You know, mobsters take the 5th. Gang lords take the 5th. Not somebody that's completely innocent.
Nathan Carmen caught a legal break today after a judge tossed out the lawsuit his aunts had filed to keep him from collecting millions of dollars from his grandfather's estate.
The judge dismisses the case after he rules John Chocolos wasn't a resident of New Hampshire.
The newspapers reported it as a tremendous win for Nathan. I wasn't too troubled by it.
Nathan is off the hook for his family lawsuit, but his insurance case is looming, and investigators have him in their sight.
Pieces of the puzzle had started to come together.
There were too many inconsistencies.
There's no such thing as a perfect crime.
Nathan Carmen and his insurer head to court in Providence, Rhode Island, battling it out in what would be Nathan's biggest legal challenge yet.
Was Nathan at fault for the sinking of his boat, or was he owed a payday?
Nathan Carmen and his lawyer saying absolutely nothing, heading to Providence Federal Court this morning for the first day of the civil trial against Carmen.
He's got everything to lose here. If the court determines that he is negligent in his mother's death, that can open up the potential for criminal charges. Nathan at times was very agitated during the trial, but he was also very active, always leaning over and having conversations with his attorney. And he was right in the thick of things.
He takes the stand, sticking to his story of what happened on that boat. What was he like on the stand?
He is very articulate. when he wants to be, very exacting, but also very evasive.
Nathan had no emotion when he testified. That may be because he is on the autism spectrum. And he talked about his mother in a way that she was more of a nuisance than she was a help to him while that boat was going down.
The judge asked him, "What's going on with your mother during all this time?" And Nathan's peculiar answer was, "My mother was part of the problem rather than the solution to a sinking boat."
With the case now in the judge's hands, Nathan talks to the media outside the courthouse.
This isn't about money. It's an $85,000 claim. I almost feel like I have a responsibility to my mom to make sure that the truth comes out.
At the end of the trial, the judge rules that Nathan was negligent with regard to the sinking of the chicken pox.
That was a small victory for me because at least a little bit of justice was prevailing through it all.
The civil case acted as the de facto criminal case. FBI investigators, Coast Guard investigators, attorneys, prosecutors, they all had front row seats.
Now it transitioned to his house in Vermont.
Pieces of the puzzle had started to come together and had started to paint a picture for us that this was in fact a criminal act.
There were too many inconsistencies. There were too many things that just didn't add up.
It became very, very clear that Nathan had committed a crime on the high seas.
We don't have a body, we don't have a boat, so it's a very, very difficult case to try to prove. The grand jurors have to decide, is there enough evidence to proceed and indict?
It took several years, but Nathan Carmen is now charged with killing his mother.
Nathan agrees to meet with investigators, but has no clue what's about to happen.
Nathan was surprised when he was advised that he was under arrest for the murder of Linda Carmen.
It was like something out of the golden age of piracy. Nathan was charged with murder on the high seas.
According to an indictment, Carmen devised a scheme to defraud his grandfather's estate and to obtain money from the trust, and the murders were part of this scheme.
However, the indictment doesn't charge Nathan with the murder of John Chocolos.
Medical records, school records.
Nathan hires defense attorney Marty Manella.
Marty Manella is a long-time, very bulldogged litigator, and when he met Nathan, he not only found a client, but he found a son.
He had literally no support. That was probably the hardest thing that Nathan had to endure, the fact that he had no one. But he had us. He really had us. And I had never, in 50 years of practicing law, had that kind of relationship with a client. Never.
As he's escorted into federal court for arraignment, cameras catch Nathan defiantly proclaiming his innocence.
Not guilty.
Before pleading not guilty to the court as well.
During Nathan's detention hearing, his aunts read a letter to the judge saying that if you let him go, they would be in fear for their life.
I was very relieved that Nathan was going to be put behind bars. If Nathan was not arrested and not contained, I really think he would have gone on a murder spree.
For years, Nathan had lived in solitude in Vermont. He had never threatened anyone. So to me, it was unusual that they were in fear of what?
The court sides with his aunts and denies Nathan's bail, setting a trial date for October 2nd, 2023. Marty and his team get to work.
It was a huge undertaking, and it was a daily, 7-day-a-week thing. It really became part of our lives.
Nathan was incredibly active in his defense. Every waking hour when he wasn't in his jail cell, he was at the prison library. poring over legal books.
This case was his whole life. He wanted his day in court. He wanted to clear his name.
The day of June 15th, 2023, came as a shock. They were just a few months away from trial.
We've learned Nathan Carmen has died while awaiting a trial for his mother's death.
I got a call in the morning. Nathan was gone, and he hung himself. And I just cried.
Nathan took his own life. He wasn't depressed. He wasn't despondent. We were all looking forward to that October date so that we could have this trial.
Despite all the family court battles and accusations, Nathan's aunts come to pay their respects at his funeral.
I attended Nathan's funeral. Myself and my sisters were there. I was very sad.
Nathan's attorney paid for the funeral, paid for his cremation, and then gave his eulogy.
Non-violent and loving young man. Sleep with the angels, my dear friend. It was probably the toughest thing I ever did because it was like losing a family member. May sound crazy. You lose cases, you lose clients, but you don't have that kind of contact that we had with this person.
I think he is both a victim and a villain in his own story. Nathan Carmen remains an enigma.
The criminal charges against Nathan were dismissed. So in the eyes of the law, Nathan is an innocent man still today.
Months after Nathan Carmen's funeral, a Connecticut judge officially declares his mom, Linda, deceased 7 years after she disappeared at sea. The Windsor Police Department tells 2020 that John Chocolos's murder case is still active.
Believed that Nathan was buried in the family plot next to my dad. Nathan, the child, belongs where he is. He needs to rest.
That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.
All right, guys, thank you very much for coming today. I have called you for a very special thing. We have an event day after tomorrow, and Khushi, you will make the necessary arrangements. Khushi,
Yeah, sure, sir.
you seem a bit off today.
Everything is good, sir. Don't worry, I will do.
All right, I am counting on you. All the very best.
ਕੱਲ ਰਾਤੀ ਰੋਈਆਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ, ਸੁਣਿਆ ਏ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਰੋਇਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ। ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਚ ਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ, ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਚ ਅੜੇ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਰਕੇ। ਮੈਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂ ਨਖਰੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਦਿਖਾਵੇਂ, ਕਿਉਂ ਨਖਰੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਦਿਖਾਵੇਂ। ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾ ਤੇ ਆਵੇ। ਪੁੱਛਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੱਚ ਸੱਚ ਦੱਸੀ ਵੇ, ਇੱਕ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਵੇ ਤੂੰ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖੀ ਵੇ। ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਵੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਵੇ। ਸੁਣ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੁਣ ਲੈ ਯਾਰ ਵੇ। ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਏ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਲੜਦਾ ਏ। ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਸੜਦਾ ਏ। ਰਾਜ ਰਾਜ ਤੂੰ ਹਰ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੋਏ, ਰਾਜ ਰਾਜ ਤੂੰ ਹਰ ਵਾਰੀ ਲਾਣੇ ਲਾਵੇਂ। ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾ ਤੇ ਆਵੇ। ਸਾਰਾ ਦਿਨ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਏ, ਤੂੰ ਯਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਏ। ਤੇਰੀ ਦੂਰੀ ਤੇ ਮਜਬੂਰੀ ਦਿਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਏ ਸਹਿੰਦਾ ਏ। ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਨਾ ਜਾਵਾਂ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਦੀ ਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਮਨਾਉਂਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਰੁੱਸਦੀ ਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਏ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਏ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸਿਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੂੰ ਖਾਵੇਂ। ਇੰਨਾ ਨਾ ਸਤਾਇਆ ਕਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਮੇਰੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਬੁਲਾ ਤੇ ਆਵੇ।
हे गाइस, तो अभी आपने हमारा दुनिया सॉन्ग देखा, सो प्लीज कमेंट करके बताना कि आपको सॉन्ग कैसा लगा।
एंड हाँ, वीडियो को लाइक करना, जाने से पहले रिपल म्यूजिक स्टूडियोज के चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लेना। थैंक यू, बाय बाय एवरीवन।